Could see wind gusts in excess of 70 miles per hour, as well as some quite blustery showers pushing in from the north and west. There's a continued risk of some snow showers in the north, but for many of us, it's likely to stay quite unsettled in the run-up to Christmas. Bye-bye.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on this Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show, every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK.
Here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you,
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Six o'clock on the dot. A very good morning to you wherever you're watching or listening. It's the 23rd of December on this Wednesday morning. You're tuned into Breakfast on GB News. Eamonn, Holmes and Ellie Costello this morning.
Here's what's leading the news this morning.
It was the strike before Christmas. Junior doctors poised to begin a 3-day walkout over poor working conditions and pay. But just how will it affect the most vulnerable in society?
They should remember patients come first. They do a brilliant job and they should get what they're worth.
Trump dumped. Colorado's Supreme Court rules the former president is disqualified from the state's 2024 ballot due to an insurrection clause. But what does this mean for his chances in the next election?
Elsewhere, experts fear Iceland's capital Reykjavik is at risk of gas pollution after yesterday's volcano eruption in the southwest of the country, following weeks of seismic activity. We'll report on that.
Inflation figures are expected to fall for a second month in a row, but experts warn people will still feel the pinch this festive season. Those numbers are due to be released in the next hour. We'll be speaking to the former advisor to the Bank of England, Roger Gewolb.
Let it snow. The Met Office is predicting a white Christmas. Could be on the cards, but it issues a danger to life warning as Britain braces for 80-mile-per-hour gusts of wind, and those will come tomorrow.
Well, let's get more on that all-important weather update with Aidan McGibbon.
It's a bright start in the south, but cloudy for many others. And the cloud, the wind and the rain will increase over the next 24 hours, turning increasingly unsettled. I'll have the full details in the forecast coming up.
Coming up in about 10 minutes' time. Paul Coit coming up after that with the sport.
Mary Earps wins Sports Personality of the Year. Steve Cooper's sacked by Nottingham Forest. And I don't know about you, but there's quite frankly not enough animals at major sporting events for my liking, and so we have a nice one for you.
What do you mean?
A dog at basketball. A dancing dog.
Dancing dog.
A guy takes a dog with him to basketball, sits the dog, and the dog dances.
Aww.
You know what?
And then no one's watching the match.
Everybody's watching the dog.
I'd be a lot
But there's a
more
little something for everyone.
if there were more animals involved.
Well, I think that's a good idea. It just makes it
an animal
more
Olympics
inclusive for
maybe.
everyone.
Animal Olympics.
You can join any of our discussions. Oh yes, we want to say on animals, as we're in the run-up to Christmas, festive pets, your mice, your cats, your dogs, your rabbits, everything, what way they're dressing for Christmas, let us know and we'll get the pictures on screen this morning, gbviews@gbnews.com, or you can tweet your lovely pictures and rabbits and pussies to @GBNews. Junior doctors are beginning a 3-day walkout with less than a week to go now until Christmas.
Yes, the British Medical Association, the union representing the strikers, says the government has still not presented a credible offer that could end the action. The dispute has been ongoing for more than a year now. Our East Midlands reporter Will Hollis has more.
Winter pressures and strikes to contend with again. Industrial action is hitting the NHS at a crucial time. For 3 days, junior doctors will be on the picket line, not with patients. Thousands of appointments will be cancelled. It's mixed opinions outside of the Queen's Medical Centre in Nottingham.
I think it's a bit bad, really. I mean, I thought doctors were on plenty of money already.
They should remember patients come first. They do a brilliant job and they should get what they're worth.
The British Medical Association's argument is junior doctors have been facing a real terms pay cut since 2008. It said the government has not offered a credible deal to end the dispute and it has no choice but to take action.
These strikes are quite simply the latest wave in a long-running dispute between the junior doctors and government. Industrial action inside of the health sector has been ongoing for more than a year now, but most other unions have settled. The junior doctors and British Medical Association have not.
Health Secretary Victoria Aitken said she's disappointed the BMA walked away from talks when negotiations had been constructive. Nearly 8 million people are waiting for NHS care. Lists reached record levels this year. Professor Sir Stephen Powis, NHS Medical Director, said, "These strikes come at a time that will cause huge disruption to the NHS, with services already feeling the strain of winter pressure." He says, in an emergency, call 999 and help will come. In the new year, junior doctors strike again for 6 days. It will be the longest in NHS history. Will Hollis, GB News in Nottingham.
If you're affected by this in any way, we would like to hear from you as to how it is affecting you and what extent you're being put out at. Let us know.
Yeah,
I'm annoyed at all the newspapers today. They're all covered in these blooming adverts for Turkey. And
I thought that when I came in, very
and
strange.
there's not, you can't see one single headline unless it's The Guardian.
Well, this one's quite interesting. On that point, Eamonn, Age UK have made a warning that they fear that the elderly are going to bear the brunt of these strikes this Christmas. And they've actually said it's going to be extremely difficult to keep the elderly safe this Christmas, as this is the biggest doctor's strike in history. That's their warning this morning. Do let us know what you think about that. GBnews at GBnews.
Especially if you're affected with this. So much in the papers today to talk about. And we're going to have an appeal for Ellie's cat. Ellie has rescued a cat, and we're going to tell you the whole story as the programme progresses. We're just waiting for the pictures to be transferred over. Meanwhile, in the USA, the Colorado Supreme Court has removed Donald Trump from the state's Republican primary ballot.
Well, it ruled he had violated the insurrectionist clause, citing his role in the January the 6th riot.
Now, this is the first time in history that clause has been used to disqualify a presidential candidate.
Well, let's speak now to Steve Gill, former advisor to the Clinton and Bush administrations. Very good to see you this morning, Steve. And this is significant, isn't it? It is the first time in history that this Section 3 clause of the 14th Amendment has been used to disqualify a presidential candidate. Tell us a little bit about this clause and how it's worked.
Well, it seems like the Colorado Supreme Court has been caught up in Trump derangement syndrome and allowed their hatred of the former president to overwhelm the facts and the law in this case. The constitutional provision was put in after the U.S. Civil War, where hundreds of thousands died in that battle over overturning the United States. In this case, they're trying to apply it to a riot that appeared on Capitol Hill on January 6th, where only one person were killed, not the hundreds of thousands in the Civil War, and it was an unarmed woman shot and killed by the Capitol Hill police. A couple of major problems with this case. One, Donald Trump has never been charged, much less convicted of insurrection, and yet the court reaching a conclusion based upon no evidence or no facts at all. Second, this insurrection clause is intended to deal with the attempt to overturn the government. And I don't think anybody watching that riot, as distasteful as it was, thought that they were actually going to overturn the U.S. government. So this case is likely to be overturned on appeal by the Supreme Court. And keep in mind, this was 7 unelected Democrat-appointed judges in Colorado. It was a 4-3 decision, and even the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court in Colorado dissented with the opinion.
Steve, let's just suppose it goes ahead. Practically, that would mean that if Trump stood for president, if he got a nomination and he's on the ballot ticket or whatever, he can be in Washington State, he can be in California, he can be in lots of places. He just would not be allowed to stand in Colorado. No one in Colorado could cast a vote for Donald Trump as president. Am I right?
Yes, and actually this deals with the March primary in Colorado, where Republican voters would be denied the opportunity to vote for the leading candidate in the Republican primary. It would only apply in Colorado. And interestingly, the Republican leadership in Colorado have said, fine, if this stands, if the Supreme Court doesn't overturn it at the U.S. federal level, then they'll go to a caucus system. They'll pick him by caucus and have him on the ballot in November, regardless if they can't put him on the ballot for this primary. I don't think it gets there. I think the Supreme Court of the United States throws this out rather quickly because it is such an egregious assault on democracy. While you've got some Democrats saying that democracy is on the ballot this election season, you actually have unelected judges preventing voters in Colorado from being able to vote for who they wish to vote for.
Well, I know, and you're very strong about that. You keep repeating that. So therefore, I'm assuming that far from this harming Trump in any way, I mean, I presume last time around he did take Colorado, did he?
He took it in the primary. He did not take it in the general election. It was a relatively narrow loss. But
so almost it doesn't matter. It wouldn't matter to him. But the thing is, the fact that he has been refused to be able to stand there, would this actually help him again? We see all these things that are thrown at Trump. They go against him, and time after time, Steve, he turns negatives into positives.
Absolutely, he is. The politician of the century that can always defy political gravity. And again, whether it's indictments or anything else, he always seems to improve in the polls. I think this will motivate voters in Colorado to say this is unacceptable. But again, I think the U.S. Supreme Court's going to throw this out pretty clearly, probably in a 9-0 decision at the U.S. Supreme Court.
But of course,
you're a terrible man not playing along with me. Every time I ask you the question, you come up with that answer. It's going to be thrown out just for fun. I was just doing it for fun. Here's Ellie with a question.
But of course, Steve, there is going to be concern from the Trump campaign, surely, that more courts and more states are going to follow suit, and then that could hinder, even harm, his campaign in 2024.
Yeah, other states have already rejected this, but you still have others that are considering it. The problem is the Pandora's box that Democrats are opening here. There are about 27 of the 50 states that have Republican attorney generals. What happens if they say, okay, tit for tat, we're going to remove Joe Biden from the ballot in 27 other states. If you want to play this game, we can do the same thing. And that is a horrible, disastrous path, I think, for American politics to go. But the Democrats are also pushing the idea that Donald Trump does not have presidential immunity for his acts as president, which again would open the door after you have Joe Biden leave the White House of whether Republican AGs can pursue him for acts done during the Biden administration, perhaps treason for failing to protect the border, perhaps corruption and bribery. This tit for tat is going to open up a course that is going to make American politics even more divisive and dangerous if the Democrats don't back off.
Divisive, dangerous, but absolutely compelling for all of us, your side of the ocean and our side, Steve. Steve, really appreciate, as always, love to hear your take on things. We'll leave it there. That's Presidential Advisor Steve Gill. Thank you. And if I don't see you, Steve, happy Christmas to you. Compliments of the season to you.
Now, it's 13 minutes past 6. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Ellie. Here's a reminder of our top stories this morning.
It was the strike before Christmas. Junior doctors poised to begin a 3-day walkout over poor working conditions and pay. But just how will it affect the most vulnerable in the country?
They should remember patients come first. They do a brilliant job and they should get what they're worth.
Elsewhere, Conservative MP Peter Bone has lost his seat after a successful recall petition in his constituency of Wellingborough, triggering a by-election. The petition had been prompted after Mr Bone was handed a 6-week suspension from the House of Commons following an inquiry that found him subjected a staffer to bullying and sexual misconduct.
Scottish Government will abandon its legal action over Number 10's veto on their gender reform bill. The Deputy First Minister confirmed any further challenge to recent rulings on the controversial legislation will be scrapped, but pledged to robustly defend the Scottish Parliament.
Prince Andrew's alleged links with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein are set for further scrutiny with the release of hundreds of new files in the new year. US Judge Loretta Preska ruled on Monday that documents relating to more than 170 associates, friends and victims of Epstein should be made public.
So, look, have we got pictures of Ellie's cat yet? No. Okay, right. We'll hold that story. That's it's a heartwarming story about abandonment at Christmas on a snowy steppe and someone who took the pussy indoors and loved and cared for it.
Yeah.
Would you like to have been taken indoors by Ellie today and cared for and nurtured? We've got the full story coming up.
Coming up for you on breakfast. Very good tease. Now, the question on everyone's lips, will there be a white Christmas this year? Well, I would like that very much. The Met Office has said it's highly likely that the country is set for snowfall, particularly in the north.
But it won't be picture perfect. The leading weather organisation has issued a danger to life warning in the build-up to the big day. Now, this is tomorrow. Large parts of the country expected to experience really, really strong winds, gale force winds and showers.
Well, one person who might have the answer to all of this is meteorologist Tamsin Green. Very good to see you this morning, Tamsin. There's lots to get through. Got a promise of a white Christmas a little bit later on in the week, but that's not before some very strong winds. And we're talking about a danger to life this warning from the Met Office. I feel like we hear that quite regularly at the moment whenever there's high winds or storms in this country.
Yeah, exactly. So the danger to life warning is part of the what to expect in the Met Office's warnings that are issued. And what that essentially means is, you know, in the event of strong winds, where we could be seeing perhaps loose debris being blown around, large, powerful waves being generated. And of course, that is a danger to life if you are in the wrong area and you're not listening to these warnings.
And it's very difficult as well, isn't it, this time of year, because so many people are out on the road, so many people travelling. And I suppose that's where this threat to life comes from as well, especially if we're talking about flying debris.
Exactly. So it will be in the area of the strongest winds. That's not going to be widespread. It's not going to be everywhere, but particularly downwind of the Pennines, of any hilly areas to the east of these areas, because we've got northwesterly, westerly winds. And also for Scotland, particularly northern Scotland, Caithness, Shetland, Orkney, those are going to be seeing winds in excess of 70 miles an hour in those areas.
Really quite dangerous stuff. So let's go to the question on everyone's lips at the moment. Will it be a white Christmas this year, do you think?
So the bar for seeing a white Christmas is fairly low. So yes, it does look like there will be a technical white Christmas. It won't be for everyone, unfortunately. It will be limited. At the moment, the way it's looking is that it will be limited to northwest Scotland with some snow showers. Elsewhere, it does look like with high pressure ridging in, we'll be seeing broadly dry conditions. At least you can get out for some nice winter walks after your lunch. So that's the plus side to it, perhaps no travel disruption, although it does look like it could be another windy day, particularly for northern areas in Christmas Day and Christmas Eve as well.
I absolutely love a walk on Christmas Day, so that's very good news. Yes. At least it will be dry. But I did catch you saying technically it will be a white Christmas. So what is a technical white Christmas? When does it cross the line, if you like?
So it is simply just one single snowflake needs to be observed falling on the 24 hours within Christmas Day, and that could be anywhere within the UK. So yeah, like I said, the bar is really quite low for that. And it used to have to be that one snowflake used to have to fall on the Met Office's building in London, but now those locations have expanded, and so it's pretty much anywhere across the UK, and that's also verified by weather station data as well.
It is quite unlikely, isn't it, to have a white Christmas? It is quite early for snow in the UK. We're more likely to get it, aren't we, more January, February time?
Yeah, it's true that we do often see snow in January or February later on in the winter, but, you know, on the whole, we don't tend to see that many white Christmases. I don't know how many times that you've remembered snow on Christmas Day. Technically, last year was a white Christmas, the year before was a white Christmas. But even for last year, 0 weather stations across the entirety of the UK saw any actual lying snow. It was just one single snowflake falling. But, of course, no one remembers it as a white Christmas. What they'll remember is that mild air and that mild Christmas.
What I tend to remember is that a month after Christmas, Tamsin, exactly a month after, January the 23rd or 4th or 5th or whatever, there can be snow. And I often think we're about a month out of sync. My favourite weather type for Christmas is blue skies and cold.
Yes, a crisp day.
A crisp day is a good description.
I agree.
A crisp day. That would do me right. No disruption, whatever it is. But there we go. Lovely talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for explaining all of that. What is your favourite type? Not the weather we've been having this week. We had terrible rain yesterday in London. Grey, dank. If it's grey and dank and nothing much happening, I don't like those.
No, I don't like that either. A crisp winter's day with a lovely sun coming down.
Sunshine and blue sky.
That's what we'd like.
Not necessarily warm.
Yeah. Are we going to be having any of that?
Well, Aidan McGivern is going to give you a warning now of wind coming your way tomorrow. OK, here we go.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning. It's Aidan McKibben here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. It's a bright start in the south. It's not going to last. We're going to see increasingly cloudy weather across the whole of the UK, and in many places it will be damp and breezy. We're starting with the damp conditions across northern parts of the country. Outbreaks of rain, persistent and heavy over western hills, and some flakes of snow at first over the Scottish mountains. But otherwise, this is mild air that's arriving from the Atlantic. So after an early chill in the south, it turns cloudier and it turns milder into the afternoon, although it's not going to feel particularly warm as the winds pick up. Temperatures widely in the double figures, and as we go into the evening, it's going to stay mild because of the cloud cover, because of the breeze, and actually that breeze is going to strengthen overnight. We're going to see gales arriving into the north and northwest of the UK, spells of rain pushing southeastwards across the country, followed by blustery showers for Scotland, and it's certainly going to be a lively start to Thursday. A mild start, frost-free across the country, although not feeling mild, obviously, because of the increasingly strong wind. That wind could bring some disruptive conditions, especially over northern hills and northern coasts, with the risk of 70 or even higher mile-per-hour wind gusts for the upland parts of northern England and Scotland, as well as the coastal parts of northern Scotland. And there'll be frequent showers carried in on that wind, although in between some brighter spells. Bye-bye.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The season of goodwill to all men going now, because here's your chance to enter the Great British Giveaway competition, £10,000 in cash, a new phone, shopping vouchers, the lot.
Yeah, it'd be nice, wouldn't it? Well, you could be the very first winner of the Great British Giveaway. Here's all the details of how you can make those prizes yours.
It's the Great British Giveaway, your chance to grab some amazing prizes and start your new year the right way. You could win an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Imagine having all of that extra cash in your bank account. We'll also bring you bang up to date with the very latest iPhone 15 Pro Max. And we'll give you £500 worth of shopping vouchers to spend in the store of your choice. For another chance to win the iPhone, the vouchers and £10,000 cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB01, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 5th of January. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Good luck.
Well, do stay with us. We've got the latest update from Iceland after a volcano erupted yesterday following months of seismic activity. That's next.
We're late! Get up!
This Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, wake up with GB News.
For the finest festive start to your Christmas for you and the whole family.
Christmas breakfast on GB News, Christmas Eve and Christmas Day from 6 a.m.
I got you this.
Oh, good. OK, I got you a little something.
Oh, I'm sure it's nice.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you. Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Right, so listen, we're sending out this appeal. I'm actually sending a message to my daughter because the story in the front of the Star today is about a guy who's from the In-Betweeners who's terrified about monkey attacks. And this happened to my daughter in Longleat Park or so, that she was 7 at the time, and the monkey tried to get into the car through the sunroof. But anyway, it was funny. It wasn't funny then, but it's funny now.
Oh, it's very traumatic.
It's very, very traumatic. Now, let's go from very traumatic to very loving and very caring, and says a lot about you, Ellie Costello. So there was Ellie, and it's coming up to Christmas, and she's laden down with parcels, and she's heading home, and she's full of giving in her heart and in her mind. And then she sees this little pussycat.
Yeah.
And you know the rhyme, I thought I saw a putty cat creeping up on me. I did, I saw a putty cat as plain could be. And the putty cat was very, emaciated.
Wet and cold and looked very, very skinny. And he was sat outside our flat last Thursday night, and I couldn't leave him there. It was dark and it was raining, so I brought him into the flat.
And that was a loving Christian thing to do.
Well, now we're in love.
Yeah.
And I'm obsessed with this cat. We're going to give you these pictures. Now, I am sorry if this is your cat. Do let me know if it is.
You mean you may have stolen this cat?
I'm now worried I might have kidnapped or catnapped the cat. We are going to share some photos with you a little bit later on in the programme.
Oh, if I have to build this up again, we've got no pictures of the cat, right? Right?
I've put milk out on a saucer for this lovely little cat, and I bought some cat food, and then yesterday I even bought a little stocking for this cat. And I'm not sure if it's boy or girl, but I'm calling it Smittens. And me and Smittens are, we love each other. We're having nice little
see
cuddles.
the story, because they've only gone and ruined it by not having the pictures. So what we'll do is we'll talk about animals we have got pictures of. So have a look at these animals, right? You've been sending us your festive... oh, what the heck? What the heck is that? Right, so here's what we've compiled. I don't know what I'm looking at there, but a pile of rubbish here. Murphy, I'm told, and Murphy looks like he's been unwrapping those presents. That's a mess.
Murphy looks like a Springer Spaniel or a Cocker Spaniel or something. Oh, this is Lily. Is Lily a Westie, or is that Jack Russell? Can't work that one out.
But very festive.
Very festive.
Let's now have a look at Bobo and Lulu in their festive clothes. And why is that sort of just taking your heart there?
They're just so sweet. What do you call that little?
No, there is a term for it. It's called like humanitarisation of animals or something.
Is it like little?
There is a term whereby we look at animals and we see them as humans, but they're not humans.
Oh, they are lovely.
That.
Do you dress your dog up?
I personally don't, but my son does, and he's 21, and my wife does, and the dog seems to like it, and
that's good.
They like you. They go, oh.
As long as the dog's happy, then that's great.
See, and here's Maureen, right? Maureen says, "This is my beautiful companion, Lola. Her name was Lola. She was a showgirl. That could be a song.
30 years ago.
So she's a therapy dog, best therapy dog ever. Now, if I owned Paul Coit, I'd dress him up for Christmas.
You do, yeah.
I would.
Yeah. It's only for, but by the way, I'm for all year round, not just for Christmas. I just want you to know that. Round. Okay, yeah.
I think you'd look nice as an elf.
You would.
Elf on the shelf.
You think so?
You'd be a good elf on the shelf.
You think I'd be a good elf?
Dress your dogs up?
No, I don't dress the dogs up. No. Well, I couldn't get near. Blimey, with this, I'd never get near Dudley. Although when he was a puppy, we got the tree, and the lights were on, and I was upstairs, and I heard bang, like that. So I ran downstairs. I've gone, oh no, I've killed the dog.
Yeah.
I've killed the dog. So I've run downstairs. The lights of the tree were off. Dudley was back on his back like that, just going, oh, like that. So apparently he'd bit through the lights.
Been electrocuted.
Yes, but everything was fine in the end, and he was all right. So I moved him with a piece of wood to make sure I was all right.
He'll not do that again.
He won't.
No.
He keeps away from the tree.
It
He's
was
10
like
now.
a volcano when it went off that tree. So we're going to talk about that now, because this volcano in Iceland, experts warning the eruption could spew on, that's a terrible term, isn't it? It sounds like vomiting. Could spew for months, they're saying.
Yeah, well, that's as the Icelandic Met Office has issued a stark warning, claiming that gas pollution caused by the explosion could impact the country's capital, Reykjavik. Yesterday, a 2.5-mile crack opened, spewing lava and smoke more than 100 metres into the air, following months of seismic activity.
Well, look at those pictures. They are just amazing, incredible. As long as you're not anywhere near that. If you lived near that, you were evacuated from many towns in the vicinity, and people who have been evacuated are now desperately hoping they can return to their homes in times of Christmas. Not sure I would want to, but anyway. Volcanologist Jasmine Bischoff now to talk more, and Jasmine is in Iceland. Hello, Jasmine. Thanks very much. What are you experiencing in Iceland? What are you aware of?
Hi, good morning. Yeah, we are very excited about the eruption here in Iceland. And it looks like the activity is slowing down a lot since yesterday. And we are not so afraid like it looks in the news.
About pollution, gas pollution in the country's capital, Reykjavik, and that disruption could last for months, couldn't it? So is there any concern about that, especially for people living in Reykjavik?
Yes, of course. Right now, we don't actually know how long the eruption will last. It could be that it's just a matter of days. It could be a matter of months. It's very hard to predict. The gas pollution in Reykjavik is not extremely high. The town is about 50 kilometers away, and right now the wind direction blows the gases towards the ocean, so that's a good thing. And even if the wind goes to Reykjavik, it's mostly enough to close the windows and don't spend a long time outside.
So tell me about your situation. You talk about Reykjavik being 50 kilometres away. Where are you in relation to the volcanic activity? What were you aware of when it went off, if anything?
I live about 80 kilometers away from the volcano, and we actually got a warning about 1 hour before. We observed the earthquakes, and we had earthquakes about 1.5 months, but the activity was slowing down a lot. And then 1 hour, 1.5 hours before the eruption started, the earthquakes picked up again. And then we started to look at the webcams, and the eruption started 2 days ago.
Well, Jasmine, the main thing is you stay safe, and everyone you know stay safe, whatever the fallout is from that eruption. And certainly they are once-in-a-lifetime pictures that we're looking at. Thank you very much indeed for your take and your experience and telling us your story. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Well, it's time now to go through all the latest sports news with Paul Coit, who is here with us. Morning to you, Paul. How are you?
Good morning.
Belle of the ball, Mary Earp, Sports Personality of the Year.
You know what? I'm with that. I'm on board with Mary Earps winning it. Third woman in a row. Emma Raducanu won it, and also we had Beth Mead won it last year, also from the Lionesses. So there she is with Sports Personality of the Year, with the presenters, and she's had a really roller coaster of a career. You know, she did great. She was the England goalkeeper. Then she had a really tough time, which she spoke about in the awards. You know, mentally, she had a real tough time with her mental health because her career seemed to be on the downslide, turned her life around. Then she was picked by England by Serena Wiegman, and then she hasn't looked back. Goalkeeper, world's best goalkeeper, and and well deserved. And I thought it was a great speech as well.
I like the idea. The word personality shines through here.
Yeah.
I mean, she hasn't won anything this year, has she? She hasn't done anything.
She hasn't actually won anything, but things personally she has. She won the FIFA Best Goalkeeper. She won that, and also, as far as the Lioness is concerned, they got to the World Cup final.
Yeah.
But when it comes to winning things, this is what you have to look at. There's not many that actually did win anything specifically.
But the thing is, personality shines through, and I think a lot of people will remember her swearing in that, was it a semi-final?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
And, I think tremendous. I'm a great believer in swearing. I do love... I do. I do. Somebody said to me yesterday, I swore to somebody yesterday, and they said, don't swear to me.
Oh, really?
Yes, very taken aback.
Were you swearing in their general direction or swearing right at them, though?
No, I was swearing generally.
General swear.
And they didn't like the idea. But I've no time for people who can't... who are 45 or 50 years of age and can't take swearing.
I tell you what,
it's motivational, as we proved with Mary.
I agree with that.
It is. Do you not agree?
No, I do.
Would you take offence to me swearing?
No, I don't mind. I like
that's because you're on the edge. You are.
Yeah, well, I swear probably too much.
I don't like a swearer for the sake of swearing.
Yes.
When you meet someone for the first time and they throw a few in because they go, actually, I'm just... And it's like, well, that's fake swearing.
Do I swear at the right level?
You swear pretty much at the right level.
And I use swear words towards people who deserve them, don't I?
I think you could swear for your country. I think you're that good.
But most people in my country do swear.
Oh, really? In that case?
Yeah, it's a sort of descriptive thing. They don't say...
Humorous as well, isn't it?
Well, you see, they don't say things like, did you see that film yesterday? It was good. They say, did you see that film yesterday? It was, and then they have a description. How good it was. My producer's getting very nervous.
I think you could curse professionally. I do.
I think I could.
I think you could.
But well done, Mary Earps.
Yeah, well done.
Listen, Steve Cooper, gone from Forest.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about this next time round, about his replacement, who it was, but we think really, really good replacement as well. Don't like to see Steve Cooper losing his job, but...
He'll be fine, though. He'll be fine. There'll be plenty of people coming after him. He's still high. He's done a good job at Forest. So it's not going to be one of those situations where he's going to be stuck for a job. And if he is going to get fired, sometimes there's better times to get fired than others. So if he's out now...
And it's a good time.
So I think he'll be absolutely fine. So there's Steve Cooper, and I think he'll be absolutely fine.
Thank you very much,
Pleasure.
Steve. Paul Coyte, see you again 7:20.
Now, as the strike before Christmas, junior doctors are poised to begin a 3-day walkout over poor working conditions and pay. But just how will it affect the most vulnerable in society?
They should remember patients come first. They do a brilliant job and they should get what they're worth.
Trump dumped. Colorado Supreme Court rules the former president is disqualified from the state's 2024 ballot due to an insurrection clause. What does it mean for his chances?
Elsewhere, experts fear Iceland's capital Reykjavik is at risk of gas pollution after a volcano erupted in the southwest of the country yesterday, following weeks of seismic activity.
With that, we will take a break, and
He's sneezing away here. Might be the Christmas tree.
Do you know I was told that it's impossible to sneeze live on air and television?
I've never done that.
Because your adrenaline frightens you so much that you cannot sneeze. But that just disproves that one, doesn't it?
That was very good.
Right, still to come.
Friends, you're not scared of anything.
Is it harmful to teach children that they can be born in the wrong body? Yes, that old chestnut comes up again after the break.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Stories making the news today. We do that in the company of Andy Jones and Alan Miller. So very nice to welcome you two here. Andy, we're going to start with you, and this is the doctor's strike leading with a lot of the newspapers today and leading our news today.
Yeah, this is the strike centred on January 3rd, January the 6th, a slated strike of doctors. It's still at the will they, won't they stage, but we're very much looking at the moment as it will be, and the expected fallout of that has already been discussed. Times leads with the headline, elderly will bear brunt of strikes at Christmas. It's going to be extremely difficult, they say, to help keep elderly patients safe. Particularly, I think, really interesting to my mind is that an A&E in Cheltenham General has already announced that it will close, meaning that it's the next A&E is 20 minutes away.
Yeah. That is quite worrying.
That is quite worrying, particularly if you're in a rural community.
To go to an A&E, it's extreme. Whatever's wrong with you is extreme, and you want it sorting out quickly. But Andy, this card is being pulled by NHS England or whatever. Oh, the poor elderly, the poor elderly. Well, if they cared about the poor elderly, they'd be paying their doctors more, and they would be funding the system in a better way than they do. That's just my opinion. I'm fed up with this going on. There seems to be no effort to settle this in any way. These people are highly trained, highly skilled. We're very dependent on them. Just pay them the money. That's my view.
Yeah, there should be a far greater compromise on this. I agree with that. The other position is we're celebrating all these doctors during lockdown, saying they're the heroes, keeping us safe, and then they ask for a bit more money, and it's absolutely not. It's disgraceful.
If you were to ask the general public, if you were to ask the taxpayer, would you pay them more money? I wonder what the result would be. I suspect it would be, yeah, pay them the money.
Yeah, I can't speculate for the whole nation, but I think there's definitely a sentiment that we want to support the NHS. I think that there's a huge annoyance. I think a lot of the stress at A&E level certainly is avoidable in the sense that if we could only get better appointments with our GPs, a lot of these conditions will be diagnosed earlier. A lot of people are presenting themselves at A&E because they simply can't get a doctor's appointment and they let conditions fester to the point that they're unbearable. I think that the access to care is becoming harder and harder to get, and then so people present themselves at A&E. This leads to these huge bottlenecks in vital care.
And it also draws people closer towards private medicine, Alan. What's your view? What's your take on things here?
Well, I think they should definitely get more money, but I think that about everyone in Britain. I think everyone should be paid more money. We've got a sluggish economy. One of the big questions is, though, that the NHS is presented as this kind of holy thing that can't have criticism, and somehow the two things go together. We need to have an overhaul. We need to have it much more efficient. There's far too much bureaucracy at the top, and people on the front line are not paid enough, and also there's not enough efficiency in terms of management. We've got a problem in terms of how we deal with that, not just with GPs, which everyone's got experience with, but also with social care. And it is interesting that, particularly as the COVID inquiry is going on at the moment, that actually now with 7 million waiting on the waiting list for the NHS, that many people didn't have as much to say about, for instance, many people being lost due to the mandating of vaccines, which we saw impacted a lot of social care people. Over 40,000 were lost, and then also the nursing and the doctor community. So I think that they should get more money. I think that we do have an issue with our emergency services across the board, but this we need to have a root and tail addressing of the NHS. In Europe, They have different ways of doing things in Germany and France. They have more beds available. They have more isolation units. We can do that. We're a modern, advanced country, but we need to get to grips with it.
Alan, I think you hit upon a fascinating area there about more people should earn more money. Everybody should get a pay rise. And I mean, obviously, in many people's eyes, I'm paid far too much and I'm paid more than they are and whatever. And I spent my life constantly being guilty because I'm from a working class family. I know what it's like to have to earn a living and what effort goes into that. And I know how difficult it is when I look at what I spent my money on. And I always say to myself, but how does someone on an average or less than average wage afford this? How do they go to the cinema with 2 or 3 kids and buy the popcorn and the drinks and whatever it is? And I could use 100 different analogies with all of that. But it's fine saying that, and I agree with you. But how do you pay people more?
Yeah. Well, you know, in the 70s and the 80s, we all looked at America and they had all these lovely houses and pools, and this is what they call blue-collar workers, so working-class people. And on the Ford floor, they were on $20 and $30 an hour. The point is that if you have an efficient, dynamic economy where you have growth and productivity and you allow zombie companies to fail and you reinvest in training and you're serious about productivity and growth with innovation and dynamic transformation, then people get paid a lot of money and lots of profits are made. That's the model that we need to get back to in Britain.
It's as simple as that.
I don't know, it's quite as simple as that, but I think we can't be in a position where, speaking broadly about healthcare, we're basically getting other countries to train all our health staff for free and then taking them over from, say, Philippines, India, wherever else.
Yes.
We don't train enough medical staff. We don't pay them when we've trained them.
We don't respect them enough.
No. And then we have a position where, yes, consultants are on huge sums of money, but a lot of junior doctors really aren't.
But they're not on huge sums of money.
Consultants, I said, are a lot on
No, they're not. You know, people will say a consultant earns 100,000 quid a year or 150,000 quid a year. You take 150 and you'll not be rich. You'll not be rich. You know, people say, oh, 150. It is compared to 17 grand a year, granted, but by the time you're taxed on that, the more you earn, the more you spend as well. That's all I'll say. I don't agree. The Daily Mail loves to say GPs on £100,000 a year. Well done to them, and I think they should be on £300,000 a year or £500,000 a year, more than a lot of the journalists that are writing the stories. That's what it should be. Anyway, we just threw all that out there to waken people up.
Yeah, well, let us know what you think about that. Lots of you getting in touch already, but do keep them coming in. gbviews@gbnews.com. Alan, this is a bit of an awkward one, isn't it? The lawyer representing Baroness Michelle Mone has now had to apologise for claiming that incorrectly claiming she wasn't connected to a firm that received PPE contracts worth £200 million during the pandemic. Tell us a bit more about this.
Yeah, so this is an embarrassing story, I'm sure, for this lawyer and for Michelle Mone, who it was with PPE MedPro. And it was the whole discussion about who got the actual contracts for PPE and why that was. And was that to do with their position? And indeed, her husband, also Douglas Burriman, received more than 600 million in profits, which was shared with the family as a consequence of this. When she was asked about this, she said, in terms of lying to the media, which she did admit doing about this, she said, well, that's not a crime. Well, that may well be true, and this is one of the reasons why so many people are so cynical and distrustful about people who either are not elected, who are peers as she is, or those who are elected, because they're seen as this situation where people are put in positions of authority and influence and can shape things. And in the context of what happened with COVID and everything, the PPE situation is particularly egregious, with the amount of money that was spent on it, the fact that it wasn't utilised, so much of it was thrown away. It's seen as kind of jobs for friends and money for friends, when we've got so much lacking. We've just talked about the fact that doctors need to get paid more money.
Absolutely.
So that's, you know, the backdrop to all of this.
Andy, just told it there, and Alan, thank you very much indeed. We have got the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, that is Mel Stride. Good morning to you, Mel Stride. And you're here to tell us that you're doing good. You're doing good for pensioners. In what way?
Well, we believe that pensioners really matter, and winter, it is a tough time as the temperatures drop. It's absolutely freezing out here this morning. So what we've provided is an enhanced winter fuel payment, which would be £500 to £600 for pensioner households. So that's 8 million pensioner households that have received that, because we think it's important to look after our pensioners at what is sometimes a joyous time of year, but also can be a more expensive time of year. And of course, that's on top of the 8.5% increase and the respecting the triple lock that will come in on the state pension as of April of next year.
Well, Mel Stride, great to hear that you really want to support pensioners this winter, especially as we speak to you on the 26th day of strike action by junior doctors. And Age UK have raised fears this morning, saying they're concerned that hospitals are going to find it extremely difficult to take care of the elderly and keep them safe this Christmas. I mean, that's a great concern, isn't it, for the elderly and the pensioners in our country. What's happening with these talks between the new health minister and the BMA? Why has there not been a resolution?
Yeah, I mean, so I think it's deeply disappointing that the doctors have walked away from these talks. We've managed to secure pay settlements now really pretty much right across the rest of the public sector, and including agreements within the NHS and other staff that are being put out to ballots. As you all know, the junior doctors have been holding out for a 35% pay increase. I think that was always going to be extraordinarily unrealistic, and I think, you know, what we are calling on the doctors to do now is to come back round the table so that we can hammer out some kind of agreement. Now, we've already got a pay offer of between 8 and about 10% on the table. We're talking about conditions and moving on to that part of the negotiation, but we really do need them around the table, because, as you say, this is going to be a very difficult time. Now, that's not to say we haven't geared up for making sure that we can best handle those pressures across the Christmas and New Year. We've got 900 new hospital beds that we've invested in, so 250 million that's gone on to that to ease the winter pressures. We've got 10,000 virtual beds that we've already brought into place to help ease pressures as well. But this is going to be a difficult time. It's unnecessary, and the doctors really should be sitting around the table and negotiating.
How far will you go? You say you've got negotiations on the table between 8 and 10%. What do you think it'll take? 12%, 13%, 15%?
Well, tempted though I am to start speculating on that, I don't think that would be right. These are negotiations that are really being held elsewhere, and I'm not a party to the intricate ins and outs of them. But I think the principle here is really important, that we're going to go into a period now when the NHS is under its most acute pressure as temperatures drop over that Christmas period. And this really is a vital time now for this almost one remaining part of the public sector, the outlier, if you like, to come back to the table and do this deal. We've achieved this right across the public sector now, and it's really just these junior doctors that are holding out, to really the detriment of, you know, as you say, elderly people, many people who will unfortunately suffer as a consequence.
Well, you're here to talk about elderly people and vulnerable people, and we talk about these winter fuel payments and the cost of living for these pensioners. Just to put people's minds at ease, how do they qualify for the payments, and is anyone ruled out on a, what do they call it, means-tested basis?
No, it's not means tested, and 99% of the payments that are due to have been made have now been made. So if you are a pensioner in receipt of the state pension, check your bank account. You'll see it's a BACS transfer payment. It will have a code next to it, which is DWP, and then the winter fuel payment, WP, next to it. So really look out for that. And it'll be between £500 and £600 per household. So it's entirely automatic. If you haven't heard as a pensioner, by the 26th of January, if you think you're entitled and you haven't heard, then go on to .gov.uk and look at the information there, or phone up the Winter Fuel Payment Centre and have a chat with them. But the vast majority of people will receive this money absolutely automatically.
Mel Stride, appreciate your take. Compliments of the season to you. And thank you very much indeed. Mel Stride's the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions. And
go inside and get warm. Have a nice cup of tea.
yes, .gov.uk to get on there and see how you qualify, because you should qualify for those pension payments. Now, I want to talk about this whole business of gender ideology. Andy, this is a big story. This has been rumbling on for a couple of days. What is changing? What has been put forward by the Equalities Minister, Camilla Tominey?
Yes, she says teaching children they can be born in the wrong body is harmful, Camilla Tominey warns, and she's been pronouncing this in various different Commons meetings. She said the worst of the toxic debate over trans rights has been played out in classrooms and social media, and potentially, I agree with this, parents being shut out. We're in this sort of bizarre position in some schools where teachers have to ring parents for permission to give the kids paracetamol, but kids are allowed to sort of change gender, change names, change pronouns, even change uniform without the parents' permission. And so Camilla Tominey, quite rightly, and also teachers want clarity on this, because teachers are stood in front of a classroom of kids, some of them may be 15, 16 years old, they're quite switched on, and they're having to legislate for any sort of change of mind in any pupil, or with parents, or wider society issues. Pupils changing names, pronouns and uniforms without telling parents is now banned. Teachers have got or education authorities have got to let parents know. And teachers, this is what I find a little bit confusing, teachers being asked to consider if a pupil is asking to identify as a new gender because of social media or peer pressure. I mean, I wouldn't want to be a teacher judging whether, is this child seriously going through a gender issue, a confusion over what they are or what they're about to be, or is this something that they've picked up on social media or they've just picked up because they've seen it on Netflix?
Alan, what have you got to say?
I think it's a really important move. I think that society has absolutely lost its way when we have an MP who's sitting as an opposition leader who can't say what a woman is and stumbles and stops and says and ah. I think it's very dangerous that we would be allowing a situation in our schools where vulnerable, we always talk about young people and vulnerability and they should be protected by adults, are actually being cajoled and directed in certain instances to do absolutely life-transformative things on the basis of an ideology. I think that this is absolutely unacceptable. It should be about parents having a knowledge, and this is a good thing this has happened.
Alan Miller, thank you very much indeed. Andy Jones, thank you. The guys are going to be back in 45 minutes' time. Your views, meanwhile, welcome. gbviews@gbnews.com.
But do stay with us. Still to come, we'll bring you the latest inflation figures that are due in just a few moments' time. We'll be analysing all of that for you. Do stay with us. That's up next.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel. Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on this Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Bursaries for training.
Good morning. It's 7 o'clock on Wednesday, the 20th of December. This is Breakfast with Eamonn, Holmes and Ellie Costello.
Compliments of the season to you. Here's what's leading the news this morning.
It was the strike before Christmas. Junior doctors are poised to begin a 3-day walkout over poor working conditions and pay. Earlier, we spoke to Work and Pensions Secretary Mel Stride. Here's what he had to say.
I think it's deeply disappointing that the doctors have walked away from these talks. We've managed to secure pay settlements now really pretty much right across the rest of the public sector, and including agreements within the NHS and other staff that are being put out to ballot.
Trump dumped. Colorado's Supreme Court rules the former president is disqualified from the state's 2024 ballot due to an insurrection clause. What does it mean for his chances in the next election? Will it affect him at all?
Inflation figures, we'll have them in just a moment, but the question we'll be asking is, will we still feel the pinch this Christmas? We'll be speaking to the former advisor to the Bank of England.
Experts fear Iceland's capital Reykjavik is at risk of gas pollution after a volcano erupted in the southwest of the country yesterday.
And later on in the programme, we'll be going live to Manchester Dogs Home, where dozens of XL bullies have ended up abandoned since the government started cracking down on the breed.
I think that dog issue, it's very sad for everybody involved. It's very sad for the dogs. It's very frightening for so many people. But gosh, do they look ugly, those dogs. But the thing is, looking ugly is one thing, but looking fierce, and I mean to be bred to look fierce. We're very interested in your views on all of this. Would you have a dog like that? You're being asked today, an abandoned bully dog, would you adopt one? Let us know your views.
Let's get your all-important weather now with Aidan McGibbon.
It's a bright start in the south, but cloudy for many others. And the cloud, the wind and the rain will increase over the next 24 hours, turning increasingly unsettled. I'll have the full details in the forecast coming up.
And the full details of what's happening in the world of sport. Paul Coit.
I've been called ugly, but I've never been called fierce. But I'll try my best.
Isn't Beyonce fierce? Hasn't she got an alter ego called Fierce?
Yeah, but she's not ugly.
She's certainly not.
Me and her together would make a wonderful couple.
Yeah.
Wonderful couple.
We'd cover it off.
You'd have beautiful babies.
Wouldn't we just?
Yes.
They'd be fierce, and I don't know what they'd be. Steve Cooper, poor Steve Cooper, has been fired as Nottingham Forest manager. Mary Earps, Lioness goalkeeper, has won Sports Personality of the Year, while the Helen Rollason Award, the Sports Personality of the Year, goes to the legendary Fatima Whitbread, and Fatima's going to be with us in about an hour's time. Yeah, she's going to come on and talk about it.
What time is she going to be on at?
Yeah, about 8:30, just before 8:30.
OK, look forward to that.
Look forward to it.
She was there. She received her award last night.
Yeah, standing O. Everybody was up. It was fantastic. Gave an amazing speech. So she's won Sports Personality of the Year and in '87, and now's won that award as well.
Very good.
Well done, Fatima.
And we should get a picture of Mary Earps in her outfit that she was wearing last night.
Yes.
Or not wearing. It was very interesting. Very
it was
interesting.
skimpy, wasn't it?
But I think skimpy's the word. But anyway, no disagreement with her winning the award in itself. Now you can join any of our discussions, gbviews@gbnews.com, and one of those discussions is going to be finally at last about Ellie Costello and her act of kindness in this Christmas season. So what did you do?
I think I've rescued a cat. And I'm in love with this cat. I think we have pictures now. So last Thursday, this lovely, and there he is lying on my chest, this lovely cat was sat outside my flat since last Thursday, and I couldn't leave that cat outside any longer. There I am feeding it. I went out and got some cat food, and I put milk on a saucer, and I've been feeding this cat ever since, and he's so happy.
If you rescued me, I would lie like that. That would remind me of that.
But he has got a collar on, see, so I think he belongs to somebody. So we posted it on our local Facebook page. I've been talking to the neighbours, but nobody seems to know where he comes from.
So wait a minute. You said you think you rescued a cat. Are you now admitting live on national TV that you may have stolen or kidnapped a cat?
Or catnapped the cat. Yeah, this is what I'm worried about now. So if this is your cat, he's had a very lovely holiday with me. Don't worry, he's been safe, he's been fed, he's been watered, and you are more than welcome to have him back. But I will miss him very much because we've had lovely cuddles.
OK, more cat stories to come. We've got the inflation figures, which have just been released. It's down for the second month in a row from 4.6, and the new figure is
3.9%. Yes, not quite the dramatic fall seen in October when inflation fell from 6.7% in September, but still more than experts predicted. So that news in the last few moments are down to 3.9% from 4.6.
But actually, it still means that we're paying 4% more for stuff. Is it this month than last month, or this year than last year? So that's what it means for us, but not as much as it could have been. That's the good news. Might we see, as a result, cuts in interest rates as a result of this? Former advisor to the Bank of England and Treasury, Dr. Roger Gewolb, joins us now. Roger shoots from the hip on all of these things. People will be getting excited. Roger, how excited are you this morning by these inflationary figures?
Well, the main inflation rate has fallen, as you say, from 4.6 for the year to October to 3.9 for the year to November. It was 6.7 for the year to September. So it's all good and it's going in the right direction. They're slight but significant falls, but nevertheless show that inflation is increasing at a lesser rate, but that it's not falling like a rock. So in plain language, everything is still getting more expensive, but doing so somewhat more slowly.
And what are we expecting to happen with interest rates now, Roger?
Well, I'm afraid nothing, because the Bank of England will be super chuffed at this news and will say that its monetary policy is working. In other words, that its 14 interest rate rises, which have crushed us all and destroyed huge swathes of British industry and consumers' lives, have gotten us to these figures from a high of 11%. But as I've been saying for over a year, since the very first rate rise, that is not the case at all, I'm afraid. We have mainly non-consumer driven inflation, which is called cost push. And it always historically falls by itself, since as long ago as wheat starting to grow again in ancient biblical Egypt. So the point is that the bank and Rishi Rich and Jezza the Hun can claim all the credit for this that they want, but they really had nothing to do with it. And what really needs to happen now is that interest rates need to start coming down immediately and gradually, but they have said, no, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, it is interesting how it is spun by Number 10, and it's as if they have created all of this. We have to be thankful to them for what has come about. But you don't believe that is the case? People have been unduly bludgeoned over the past year.
Well, yes. I mean, you know, they are saying we've got to leave rates where they are to continue to fight our persistent inflation. But the rate rises did nothing whatsoever to decrease the inflation. Cost push falls by itself. And in fact, Eamonn, in my view, and that of many others, many eminent economists, the 14 interest rate rises actually created more inflation. I mean, it's pretty obvious. If you make money more expensive, prices will go up. And that prolonged the time before our cost push began to fall. We would have seen the kind of decreases we're seeing today much earlier, but for these lovely folks.
Now, Roger, I want to keep you on the subject of politics now, and where you are in the USA yourself today. This ruling that came out overnight that Donald Trump would not be allowed, as things stand at the moment, to run for the American presidency in the state of Colorado. What do you make of that?
Well, I left our Christmas house guests for a couple of days to come over here, see some family, and check out what each side had to say. And I've been speaking to Trump people and Biden people. The first thing I noticed that is interesting, guys, is that Americans aren't talking at all about what's going on in Gaza or Ukraine. They're only talking about American politics. They're really, locked into it. And you have to understand that in Britain, accountants run things. Everything becomes an account. Everyone becomes an accountant. They become company chairman, et cetera, et cetera. In America, it's the reverse. The lawyers run everything, and everything involves lawyers. And the minute you have an argument with somebody, you call a lawyer. So the fact that people are sued or indicted it doesn't have the stigma that it does in the UK and Europe. It's just all tactics and strategy. And this latest move, what I found is that the Trump people are very confident. He is so far in the lead, and everything that happens, including this latest thing in Colorado, just advances him further because it's so obvious what the Democrats are doing. And when I speak to the Biden people, they try to hide it, but they sound pretty worried about the fact that he's about to be indicted for what is known in the press here as the Biden crime family has done in all sorts of business dealings and the rest. So what they've done here is they've hauled out an old law, Section 3 of the 14th part of the United States Constitution, which really was enacted just after the American Civil War to prevent Confederates, secessionists, from rejoining the government once the southern states rejoined the Union. So they've dragged this old thing out of the closet, and they've used it to say that Donald Trump is unfit to be president because he created an insurrection. Now, I mean, I'm an American lawyer and I'm a former adjunct law professor, and yet I'm not a constitutional law specialist, but this is a giant Supreme Court case. You really can't take away Americans' voting rights and say you won't put somebody's name on the ballot because a bunch of judges, who the newspapers point out were all appointed by Democratic governors, by the way, say that he shouldn't have done this.
And I'm gathering from your tone, Roger, you assume it'll be challenged and probably overturned. And bear in mind, he didn't even win Colorado last time around. Maybe it doesn't matter anyway. Right. Roger, I've got to leave.
I have no doubt. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I have no doubt it will be. I've got no doubt it will be challenged. I wouldn't predict the outcome with as much certainty as that, because the judiciary in so many places has been weaponized.
Yeah.
Very clearly, as has the FBI and certain other agencies.
Interesting stuff. Roger, got to leave it there. Time's against us. As always, really appreciate your take on things, and compliments of the season to you. It's a beautiful tree behind you there. Very, very nice. Thank you.
Thank you, and to you both.
Very much
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, junior doctors are beginning a 3-day walkout with less than a week to go until Christmas.
The British Medical Association, which is the union which represents the striking doctors, says the government has still not presented a credible offer that could end any action. The dispute has been ongoing for more than a year. Our East Midlands reporter Will Hollis has more on this. Will.
Winter pressures and strikes to contend with again. Industrial action is hitting the NHS at a crucial time. For 3 days, junior doctors will be on the picket line, not with patients. Thousands of appointments will be cancelled. It's mixed opinions outside of the Queen's Medical Centre in Nottingham.
I think it's a bit bad, really. I mean, I thought doctors were on plenty of money already.
They should remember patients come first. They do a brilliant job, and they should get what they're worth.
The British Medical Association's argument is junior doctors have been facing a real terms pay cut since 2008. It said the government has not offered a credible deal to end the dispute, and it has no choice but to take action. These strikes are quite simply the latest wave in a long-running dispute between the junior doctors and government. Industrial action inside of the health sector has been ongoing for more than a year now, but most other unions have settled. The junior doctors and British Medical Association have not. Health Secretary Victoria Aitken said she's disappointed the BMA walked away from talks when negotiations had been constructive. Nearly 8 million people are waiting for NHS care. Lists reached record levels this year. Professor Sir Stephen Powis, NHS Medical Director, said these strikes come at a time that will cause huge disruption to the NHS, with services already feeling the strain of winter pressure. He says in an emergency, call 999 and help will come. In the new year, junior doctors strike again for 6 days. It will be the longest in NHS history. Will Hollis, GB News in Nottingham.
Well, let's speak now to the former Medical Director and Chief Medical Officer of Bupa, Dr Andrew Vallance-Owen, who joins us now in the studio. Very good to see you this morning, Doctor. On a significant day, 26th day today of strike action by junior doctors in this pay dispute. Now, this is really interesting because you were a negotiator in the 80s. So how did we get to this stage where we're on the 26th day of action?
Can I give a bit of context first? I mean, first of all, the junior doctors, the doctors generally, nurses, they are on the very front line of the NHS, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And I think part of the problem is a reduction in the recognition of the value of our frontline staff. And I think the three parties involved. I think the government, of course, has got its caps because of the state of the economy at the moment. But NHS England is also, it's also relevant there because junior doctors and doctors generally, they see the management cadre getting really quite high salaries. You know, a junior doctor may be on 40,000 who's actually doing their own operations now, quite sort of significant responsibility. Can see a manager of the same age, maybe earning 70,000. And then they're demoralised because of COVID and the long hours and things like that. So I think they've got a very strong case, and it's lack of recognition, really, which is upsetting them. And after 10, 12 years of standards dropping, I think they've just come to a time when they've said enough is enough. And the sort of percentage support is very, very high. Do you think, given the ethical issues that worry them a lot, actually?
But do you think the public will stay on side, Doctor? Because, I mean, the front page of the Times this morning says the elderly are going to bear the brunt of strikes this Christmas. This is Age UK saying it's going to be extremely difficult for hospitals to keep the elderly safe over Christmas. I mean, that's something that people are going to really struggle to continue to support the junior doctors when their loved ones could be unsafe.
But there are two sides to it. Yes, of course there is an ethical duty to do no harm, and we all try and buy into that. But the government has an ethical duty too to ensure that the people who are at the front line are looked after properly and aren't driven, as I think they have been, to take this action. And so there are two sides to that argument. You can blame the doctors, or you can blame the government.
But also, Andrew, I feel that, you know, Ellie's asking the question, will the public still support the doctors? What's the alternative? What do you say? No, we don't support you doctors, now you can all clear off. You have to support them. There's really no choice.
Yeah. Well, they're fundamental. And the nurses. You know,
why isn't
people on the
that
front line are
recognised?
fundamental.
My point is, I mean, you use that word fundamental. Yeah. When I look at government negotiators, yes, they've got budgets and things to work with, but a lot of people would say the NHS is badly funded, badly paid from top to bottom. So why don't they just grab this one and say that historically we have let pay slip here, we've got to put this right, and we're going to put it right over the next 15 years or whatever it happens to be.
And I think a long-term solution is needed, but there is an immediate solution required as well. And I think internally in the NHS, they have to give more recognition, financial recognition, to the people at the front line. They are, as I say, fundamental, but they're not doing that. And the government, the actions of the government in terms of the sort of things they're saying about the junior doctors doesn't help. I think the junior doctors themselves, their approach to negotiation, 35% or nothing, has been a mistake. I think they've made a mistake, and I think they've made a mistake in becoming more ideological and apparently wanting to get rid of the government.
You live in the practical world now, right? You're in the BUPA, the world of private medicine now. What does this mean? Look, from my point of view, I would look and I'd say, I can't deal with the delays, I can't deal with appointments months down the line or whatever. I need tended to, I need tended to now. What does that mean? That means private medicine for me, by and large. What do you think it will mean for most people, and will all of this will this change the map? Will this make private medicine in a stronger position?
Yeah, well, I'm not here as a private medicine advocate today, obviously. You know, I have a passionate belief in the NHS, but we're seeing that happening now already because of the waiting times. People who can afford it are moving towards private medicine and are paying for insurance and things like that, which is sad because the NHS, we're all very proud of the NHS, and I think that worries me.
But it's sad, but if people are happy to pay for it, if people have got the money to pay for it and they're happy to pay for it and it solves their problems, does that, I put the question to you, does that not relieve the burden on the NHS and free up the NHS for people who can't afford?
I mean, that's the argument, of course. And but the trouble is, I don't want to get too financial here, but the capacity of the private sector isn't enough. There hasn't been investment in new private hospitals over previous years. So at the moment, private hospitals are taking on NHS patients, but with more interest from private patients, that capacity is reducing in terms of availability to NHS patients. And so there has to be a whole look at all this.
What a mess it is. Dr. Andrew Valenzuela, he's a former medical director and he is Chief Medical Officer of BUPA. If you can relate to what he says, if you've got an argument, if you're for or against what he's saying there, get in touch with us, gbviews@gbnews.com. Is there an answer to all of this, and what is it? Doc, thank you very much indeed. Cyril says, for goodness sake, give them some money rather than pay Rwanda and France. Let's look after our own people instead of wasting it on lost causes. Enough is enough. And Andrew says, the NHS is extremely poorly paid. I earned more as a printer than I do now as a district nursing assistant. I'm 55 years of age and I'm working harder now and under more stress than any time I have in my whole working career.
Wow, well, do keep those emails coming in to us. gbviews@gbnews.com. Now it's time for your weather with Aidan McGibbon.
Hello, good morning. It's Aidan McGibbon here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. It's a bright start in the south. It's not going to last. We're going to see increasingly cloudy weather across the whole of the UK, and in many places it will be damp and breezy. We're starting with the damp conditions across northern parts of the country. Outbreaks of rain, persistent and heavy over western hills, and some flakes of snow at first over the Scottish mountains. But otherwise, this is mild air that's arriving from the Atlantic. So after an early chill in the south, it turns cloudier and it turns milder into the afternoon, although it's not going to feel particularly warm as the winds pick up. Temperatures widely in the double figures. And as we go into the evening, it's going to stay mild because of the cloud cover, because of the breeze. And actually, that breeze is going to strengthen overnight. We're going to see gales arriving into the north and northwest of the UK. Spells of rain pushing southeastwards across the country, followed by blustery showers for Scotland. And it's certainly going to be a lively start to Thursday. A mild start, frost-free across the country, although not feeling mild, obviously, because of the increasingly strong wind. That wind could bring some disruptive conditions, especially over northern hills and northern coasts, with the risk of 70 or even higher mile-per-hour wind gusts for the upland parts of northern England and Scotland, as well as the coastal parts of northern Scotland. And there'll be frequent showers carried in on that wind, although in between some brighter spells. Bye-bye.
Right, now we're going to talk about trophy hunting. A British firm under fire after selling reindeer shooting holidays in Norway. Yeah, time of the year to shoot reindeers, isn't it? We're going to be debating that in just a moment.
Hello, thank you for being a big part of GB News.
We'd like to wish you and your loved ones a Christmas season full of comfort and joy.
As well as a peaceful
and prosperous new year.
From our family
to yours.
We are proud to be your channel.
Merry Christmas.
Happy Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Happy Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas.
Here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Merry Christmas.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
to find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Now, a British firm is under fire after reportedly selling reindeer shooting holidays in Norway. The company in question has said it was pleased to be able to offer these exclusive hunts for members of the public.
Are you tempted? Meanwhile, animal activists have dubbed this move sick. They say it's beyond appalling, suggesting it ruins the spirit of Christmas. And I suppose they do have a point this time of the year where reindeer, we epitomise them, we visualise them pulling Santa's sleigh, and now we're asking people to go and kill them for amusement. So should we allow trophy hunting, or should it be a thing of the past?
Well, to debate this now, we're joined by the host of the Field Sports YouTube channel, Charlie Jacoby, and campaigner at PETA, Molly Eldson. Very good to see you both this
morning. Charlie, I hope I've painted a seasonal enough picture there of Rudolph and his red nose and everything else. It's a bit of bad timing on this, isn't it?
Well, I think it's quite careful timing, but the thing about reindeer is they're a wild population. They live in Norway. They are managed, even though they're a wild population.
Is this part of the managing, these shooting holidays?
And shooting holidays is part of the management because it brings a great deal of cash into rural areas that might not otherwise see it. So, you know, we work with a group of people called the Svanøy Red Deer Foundation in Norway, and they are funded by hunting.
But you see, Charlie, here's where I have a problem, big problem. What joy would I get out of putting a bullet through the head of an animal, something that lives? I mean, if you set me out targets in the woods and things, I'd enjoy it, have a very good time. I'd love to go with you. I'm very good with firearms, very, very good shot. But targets rather than animals.
Yeah, I think it's a very complicated question to answer. The thrill of the hunt, the thing you get out of it. The best thing to do is to tell you that, I mean, hunting in this country, deer hunting, is incredibly accessible. It's easier to go deer hunting from a standing start in a city than it is to get a game of golf or a game of tennis. It's easier, quicker and cheaper. So if just look up your local deer guide and go and try it, and I think then you'll find out what it is.
That must send a shiver down your spine to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, killing any animal for fun is appalling to think about, let alone reindeer, who are these gentle, sensitive animals who live in large family groups. So it's appalling to think of killing them for fun. And a lot of animals killed by hunters endure prolonged and painful deaths. And for what? You know, for a thrill and a souvenir to mount on the wall. It's absolutely disgusting. So I'd encourage everyone watching, of course, to never get involved with any activity that involves harming animals. And of course, the government has a part to play as well by implementing a ban to prevent importing hunting trophies into the UK, to prevent hunters from going abroad and killing these magnificent and beautiful animals.
And what would you say to Charlie's point that these shooting holidays are part of controlling the wild population in Norway?
Yeah, well, not only is shooting animals incredibly cruel, but we also know that it's very inefficient in resolving any human-perceived conflict with these animals. As long as an area remains attractive and accessible, then these animals are going to continue to breed, which just creates this perpetual killing cycle where issues of population aren't really solved. So the best thing that we can do is leave these animals to be. Most of these problems come because of us interfering with nature, and just allow them to live their lives as they want to.
Perpetual killing cycle.
Yeah, I'm delighted Molly knows why I go hunting when I don't, but I know I don't agree with that. I think one of the things you get when you go hunting is you kind of get to take part in nature, and nature is something where animals don't die in their bed surrounded by their grandchildren. You know, the trees you see from your railway carriage are not put there for your benefit by the railway companies. That, you know, they're generally there for hunting and shooting. That's how we manage the countryside.
Charlie, what is a reindeer? I'm just looking at a picture, just on some film there of reindeers in the wild there again, and they look. Part of them look like a cow. And maybe part of them look like a horse. What exactly is the creature?
This is an amazingly successful deer. It's pretty well all the way around the subarctic. In North America, they're called caribou. Over here, they're called reindeer. In Sweden, they're all domestic. In Norway, which is what we're talking about, some are domestic, some are wild, and it's the wild ones that are available for hunting. Yeah, like deer in this country, you know, we are extremely hypocritical about our views of British people going abroad and hunting, whereas in this country, you know, we have a kill order on tens of thousands of deer from the government, from the conservation industry at the moment. And you have to remember, in this country, 20,000 stags' heads are handed to grateful tourists every year who've been taken out by professional deer managers to shoot those animals.
What would you say, Molly, to one of those grateful tourists? I mean, here we are, to get a present for Christmas, to be given an animal's head as a present to mount on your wall. What would you appeal to people who would want something like that for Christmas?
Well, I mean, it's just really heartbreaking to think, you know, we live in 2023. There's so many things that we can do for entertainment. There's so many decorations we can get for our houses. We don't need to be killing animals for fun or for decorations. They are individuals. The way we have cats and dogs at home, they have their personalities. They feel pain and they feel fear, but they also feel joy and they feel happiness. We shouldn't be killing them for any reason at all, and we should leave them alone.
Molly, in an hour's time on the programme, we're going to be talking about XL bully dogs, and there's a situation where in Manchester a number of them have been brought into a compound, and if they're not found homes by January, they will be put down. A dilemma here. You're dealing with an animal, just the way you described there, but you also could be dealing with a dangerous or a fierce animal. What's your view?
Yeah, I mean, it's of course really upsetting for these animals that are left in shelters. So I'd appeal to anyone that's out there and can offer a home to a dog to take one in. And, you know, at Christmas time as well, many people are buying puppies, unfortunately, but if you can adopt a dog...
But what if these bully dogs frighten you?
Well, personally, they don't. You know, there's a lot to say about the people that, you know, look after them, and unfortunately, they do end up in the wrong hands because of the way they look, but that's only because we've perceived them to be that way and we put these traits on them. But really, you know, I believe all animals have kind souls.
Molly Elston from PETA, thank you very much indeed. Charlie Jacoby, very interesting to hear from you from the field sport point of view as well. Thank you both very much indeed. Goodness me.
And let us know if you would adopt an XL bully.
See, that's right. I mean, I think Molly makes a really interesting appeal here about that. But yet, a lot of people wouldn't have them in their home because they're frightened of them. And then, why would they be given to other people to look after? Why would they be taken off their current owners, if you're with me?
Yeah.
If they're dangerous, no matter who they're with.
And you've got to muzzle them and things now, so it is very difficult.
The Great British Giveaway. You know what it's all about? Have a go.
It's the Great British Giveaway, your chance to grab some amazing prizes and start your new year the right way. You could win an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Imagine having all of that extra cash in your bank account. We'll also bring you bang up to date with the very latest iPhone 15 Pro Max. And we'll give you £500 worth of shopping vouchers to spend in the store of your choice. For another chance to win the iPhone, the vouchers and £10,000 cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB01, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday, the 5th of January. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Good luck.
All right, you know the way our sports, we do sport like no one else does sport. It has to be said here. Yeah. And it's all due to this man, Paul Coit, here. And we were just talking about dogs, and Paul said to me, Eamonn, dogs have all sorts of different personalities. And he has, now, this is Brody the Golden Doodle.
Yes.
Okay, so tell us about Brody.
Brody is apparently an influencer dog. Can you believe it? An influencer dog.
Stay with us. This is about sport, right?
This is a sport. We will get there. So it's a huge basketball game. It's LA. It's the Lakers are playing the New York Knicks. There we are, and there's Brody sitting in the front row.
That's a human, that's not a dog.
It's a dog.
That's a bear.
I know, look.
No, that's somebody in a
There's
costume.
a man working the dog from behind. He's sitting on a man's lap, and so he's doing this. So it's like an influence. There he is. Look, he's a huge Lakers fan.
That is a person.
Kevin Bacon was sitting just there, slightly to the right. Everybody was amused, and it's a big dog, and it's the dancing dog, and you go, hey, look at the dog, and everybody's forgetting the basketball and watching the dancing dog.
They are not telling me that's a person.
What breed is that? That's
it's
huge.
a golden doodle. So is that half golden retriever and half?
A golden retriever and
a poodle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Golden doodle.
So I think golden doodles then may be top of the list, Ellie, for Santa this Christmas.
Absolutely.
Then. Oh, yeah.
It's like the size of the Christmas tree. You couldn't put it under the tree, could
especially
you?
if the owner of that cat turns up.
But remember,
then we can know
everybody,
what to get you.
a dog is for life, not just for Christmas. Okay?
100%.
And adopt, don't shop. With that.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. So that was at the Lakers basketball match. where Brodie was the star attraction there. OK, star attraction, the sports personality of the year, a woman with tremendous personality.
Absolutely.
The Manchester United goalkeeper, Mary Earps.
Mary Earps deserved, the Lioness goalkeeper. She won yesterday. There she is with the trophy. And I don't think anybody can really doubt her winning that, because we've mentioned it, that it's good that it's someone with a personality, because to actually find a lot of sports people, you know, sometimes they're a bit dull.
I look at you and I think to myself, you're a great guy, you're really accurate with your sport and everything that comes with it. And I just think, if only you had a personality.
I know,
you know, and then it would be the complete. I'm not being rude now.
No, I'll take it on board.
Yes,
and I appreciate that.
No, you know, just go because you mean well.
I know, I do.
Yeah.
I've often thought the same about you, Eamonn.
Steve Cooper meant well at Nottingham Forest. It didn't go well enough for him, but Forest have sacked him. The replacement I rate very highly.
Do you? This is Nuno Espirito Santo. Yeah. So Nuno, who was at Wolves and then he was at Spurs for a short time. Then he went over to Saudi Arabia to Al Ittihad. He was fired there. Now Steve Cooper, there's Steve Cooper. He's done an amazing job. And Nottingham Forest have been out of the top flight for 23 years. Took them up, avoided relegation. They're not even in the relegation spots at the moment. But the thing is, you always have to look forward. There's a lot of Forest fans that are really upset, very sentimental about it, and thinking he's done so. Yeah, of course, fans like him, but you have to be brutal. And I think it's probably not the wrong thing.
Is brutal. I used to bank with a bank called Espirito Santo.
Oh, did you?
Do you know
did you have to wear a long beard?
No, do you know what Espirito Santo means?
I have no idea what it is.
Do you know what Espirito Santo means?
The spirit of something.
The Holy Ghost.
Oh.
Oh, is it?
Espirito Santo.
Yeah,
so his name is Nuno, the Holy Ghost.
He's the Holy
Ghost. It's a bit
Ghost.
like Casper, the Friendly Ghost.
Yes.
It's Nuno,
the Holy Ghost.
The Holy Ghost.
There he is.
But I think he'll do quite well. But he's got a fantastic beard, which is always good in a manager. And I interviewed him once, and he's actually got a beard comb, you know. And that
Men are obsessed with beards, aren't they?
I
just have a lot of respect for people with a beard.
Have you ever kissed a man with a beard?
Me? No.
No, neither have I.
It's very...
I haven't either.
Granddad.
Really? I don't think I would like a person with a beard, a woman with a beard, a man with a beard.
No, I can't grow a beard, so that's the reason I can't do that. Yeah, it's always out for me.
Makes me itch.
Yeah, I've never got that
Even
far.
the thought of it now makes me itch.
Yeah.
But thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Right,
we like the dog best, right? The dog was the best part.
Yeah.
The dog's really good.
There should be more dogs
Brodie.
in sports.
Fatima Whitbread, we'll speak to her in an hour, by the way.
Yes.
Right. Donald Trump, OK, he's been booted out of Colorado. We can't stand there if he runs for the presidency, talking about that and the other stories making the headlines next.
Wake up to the headlines with headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6 is Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show. Every Saturday. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We welcome back, we are joyous to welcome back Andy Jones and Alan Miller, and they're going to put their heads together and they're going to talk about things that hopefully will make the headlines over the coming day and are making the headlines. So, Alan, first of all, a by-election. So this guy, this MP, Peter Bone, this Conservative MP, so his constituency have said, no, you've misbehaved once too many here, you're out, we don't want you again, we've deselected you. Right, so what happens next?
Well, it's true that the Northamptonshire Council, 13.2% of the constituency, so it's past the watershed of 10%, have said that they want a deselection and they want to have a re-election. So that's what's going to happen. And this is based on allegations of bullying and some sexual misconduct. So we're not entirely sure about everything, about what's actually true or not from 10 years ago.
OK, but it was enough to influence his constituents.
Absolutely, some of them. And he makes the point 86% of them did not vote. But now this is what's happening because it's past the threshold. So obviously for Rishi Sunak, that's a concern because it's another issue that is not the sort of focus that you want in the press. You want to be able to talk about certain things. And I must say that, you know, I think, you know, it's good that some have organised to make people accountable. The more people are accountable, I think, the better democratically. I think many people are politically homeless right now. There's a sense in which that no one's representing the interests of many ordinary people in Britain. We've got an election year, and that's also why together we're saying that the public should be at the heart of things.
So Andy, you jumped straight in there. I don't vote, but if I did vote, I honestly would not know. Well, I think I would know where to put the vote, actually, but usually I don't. I think to myself, nobody represents me.
No, we've got a Conservative government that isn't really Conservative. I think they've acted on half of their manifesto pledges. And again, Peter Bone denies his allegations, but we're talking about MP impropriety. We're talking about there's dozens and dozens of allegations of sexual impropriety against MPs. I don't know what half of these individuals stand for. Half of these, not talking about Peter Bone specifically, I'm talking about MPs, half of them are backed by foreign money. Half of them don't seem to know their elbow from another part of their body. I don't know what they stand for. They aren't acting in the public's interest. And again, like Alan, I feel rather politically homeless. I don't understand what Labour particularly stand for either. I feel like we've got a Conservative government that isn't Conservative anyway, and I think that they're in real trouble at the next election.
We'd imagine turnout of this by-election to be really, really low. I mean, we're in a general election year. People just simply won't come out twice, will they?
Well, that's happened at the local elections. We see sometimes less than 20%, sometimes as low as 10%. But in the general election, it did go up a little bit with Brexit, but basically it's been a year-on-year decline. But many people now are beginning to stand as independents. We saw there was, in the context of Uxbridge, a pushback around net zero. We've seen across Europe all sorts of things happen, like Geert Wilders, and we've seen the farmers in the Netherlands as well as in Germany most recently. Obviously, Meloni in Italy. We've seen a range of things happening, and many people feel like they're just not being given a voice. And that's about borders, that's about the health service, that's about pay. And often, if you do have these discussions, people will start calling people names, a lot of the people who run some of the media and in a little bubble. But I think that we're not going to be able to avoid, and we shouldn't be able to avoid, the fact that many people want to address these very, very significant issues. And I think it's really, really important that the public does have a sense in which these things matter, because there was an interesting poll recently that said that a lot of young people think, well, maybe it isn't such a terrible thing to have a dictator because, you know, it just gets things done. And you just think to yourself, well, that is a travesty, because this thing over 300
No, that's
years...
practical. A benign dictator. You must be able... No, you can understand, I'm jesting with you, but you can understand how just to get things done, instead of asking every blooming person their opinion or what they think about this or that. No wonder planning doesn't get done, building doesn't get done around the country, whatever. But a benign dictatorship, if only such a thing existed.
Yeah, if only. Andy, let's have a look.
No, sorry, I want to give this man a right to reply on this.
I think
it's horrified him.
I think the idea, that's why we say take back democracy at Together, and the idea that locally, regionally, nationally, people have been campaigning, arguing for things, articulating them, and I think we'll see more independence.
You see, I think that's interesting you're talking about independence. The party system, I think more than anything, that's what's broken at Westminster and at various levels around the country, that you've got to do what the big boss says, and people can't vote against their conscience. I could never be in a political party because I'm too independently thinking.
No.
Maybe you should stand.
No, I wouldn't do that.
The other thing I'd say is, we talk about why aren't our MPs doing anything. It's because we don't own anything. We don't own our infrastructure, our water, gas, our electric. We haven't got any control over our borders. Most of our big industry dictates to us what we're going to be doing, and you've got people sort of moving chess pieces around without any real power. So the real power lies with industry. The food industry, the oil industry, the water industry. That's where the real power lies. Yeah, I think we're getting closer and closer to sort of American position of where lobbying has great power. And you look at whether it's the medical contracts for PPE, whether it's sort of health, whether it's food, there's big power.
Now, look, I want to go to you, Andy, to talk about this Dignitas, this right to die business, all raised by my friend Esther Ranson, who's got stage 4 cancer. Her daughter's in the papers today. Esther's 83 years of age. She's considering the option as she faces dying of lung cancer.
Yeah, credit to, obviously, thoughts to Esther Ranson's family, but also credit for Esther for raising this issue. I think it's something that a lot of older people are facing. Indeed, I think a lot of people are facing. Esther Ranson's daughter has told the Mirror she's horrified of the thought of her mum flying to Switzerland to die alone at a Dignitas clinic.
And the reason she'd have to die alone is that if her daughter went with her, she would be culpable in assisting her dying.
Yeah, 14 years in prison you could face.
Right.
I mean, what kind of society are we?
Well, I think all that's nonsense. That's nonsense.
I think you can have opinions on right to die, but to say somebody accompanying their relative to a Dignitas clinic in Switzerland should face public penalty is horrifying to me. And we were talking about elderly people at risk earlier on in the show with the strikes and their vulnerability. We're talking about assisted death now. I think a lot of older people are thinking, well, who is going to look after me? And this question is
well, I'll tell you, mate, I've been sick for the past 5 years or so, various things, and I am clear in my mind, and I've told all my kids, if I can, bring me to Switzerland, you know, if that's the case. I wouldn't want to face it.
So it's one of those really big, heartfelt, emotional things. My dad had motor neuron disease. My mum has MS. And I think there's a really tricky moment, which is that if you sanction the state to give permission to allow people to be killed, then that raises a lot of questions. Now, here's where the issue is like at many points, people don't want to do it when they actually can. But then there's a moment where they don't want to do it, where they want to do it, but they can't.
They're incapable.
Now, often, we should just say that informally, GPs and doctors and others, they're doing a remarkable job at end of life, and there's all sorts of decisions that are made informally. But we know this discussion, whether it's on the environment or overpopulation, you can just imagine a situation where they go, all these old people, all these horrible terms like coffin dodgers, they don't want to... Maybe they just could do with a bit of... Or they just think that they're a bit of a burden. And I do think this is ironic. When we got a COVID inquiry going on and we saw things like do not resuscitate and midazolam and all sorts of things where people, elderly people with vulnerabilities, were often...
But they don't have to be elderly.
No, that's true.
Right.
But they were given all of these do not resuscitate. The measures sometimes just signed through. They didn't really know about it, and it hasn't been addressed properly in the COVID inquiry. So this is a very emotive issue. I think quite often it raises a lot of questions because medics often do make decisions with families, but they do it informally. And I've had this conversation with my mum as well. It's like you get a situation where obviously it's illegal to commit suicide, but no one's going to hold you accountable if you've done it. But the question is that if someone else has done it with you, then it's not technically suicide, right? And that raises some big questions. So they're big philosophical, fundamental questions.
Do you think there should be a free vote in Parliament over this?
I'd be interested. I think they'd definitely be interested in the results. I mean, obviously, in this country, it's a prosecutable offence if you have an animal that's in extreme pain and you don't take it to be put down. Yet, if it's a human being in extreme pain and really suffering, and I think we know the line that we're talking about here, we're not just talking about people who are quite ill, we're talking about people who are in desperate straits. They're then able to arrange their own death, and I think that's a real tragedy. And I think in a country that is, and this is a horrible thing to confront, a country that simply cannot look after the number of people it has, I think we'll see a ruling on this sooner rather than later.
What do you think, Alan?
Well, I would be very nervous about thinking about it in terms of numbers or anything else. I think that we should think about what do people need, what's our views of humanity. We don't treat humans as we treat animals. That might want to be changed. And I think ultimately we have a duty of care to all of us. In a civilised society, we should try and make sure that everyone is as healthy and happy for as long as possible. And that obviously raises some tough questions.
OK, tough questions which hopefully you listening, you watching, can answer for us. That was Andy Jones and Alan Miller, and they're going to be back in 40 minutes' time. But it's gbviews@gbnews.com. Please do get in touch with us because it's not a simple thing.
No.
But yet you could see it as a simple thing if you're in pain. Now, we've dropped the weather, have we? Don't know why we've done that, but anyway, let's go. We're going to take a break. We're back top of the hour. Please don't go away.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Very good to see you. The time quickly creeping up to 8 o'clock on this Wednesday morning. I hope you're in the Christmas mood. I hope you're in the Christmas spirit. And you're getting things organised for the big day next Monday. Right at this moment, you're tuned in to Breakfast here on GB News. I'm Eamonn Holmes, and that's Isabel Webster. No, it's not. Why did I read that?
Today?
She's on my mind. The woman possesses me.
That's quite sweet.
So there's so many different program, different day, different presenter.
Yeah.
But it's
Eamonn and Ellie today, and it rolls
Costello.
off the tongue,
Just
doesn't it?
rolls like that. Right, anyway. Leading the news this morning.
Inflation falls more than expected to 3.9% in a surprise boost for mortgage holders. Here is what the Chancellor has to say. We'll hear from that in just a second, but let's go to Jack Carson now for reaction.
Yeah, of course, inflation down 0.7% on last month. But as we head ever closer to Christmas, what is the impact of the economy on how much people are spending? I'll have the latest from Birmingham.
It was the strike before Christmas. Junior doctors are poised to begin a 3-day walkout over poor working conditions and pay. Earlier, we had the Work and Pension Secretary Mel Stride on the programme.
I think it's deeply disappointing that the doctors have walked away from these talks. We've managed to secure pay settlements now really pretty much right across the rest of the public sector, and including agreements within the NHS and other staff that are being put out to ballot.
Trump dumped. Colorado's Supreme Court rules the former president is disqualified from the state's 2024 ballot due to an insurrection clause. But what does this mean for his chances in the next election?
We're also going to Manchester Dogs Home, where dozens of XL bully dogs have ended up abandoned since the government started cracking down on the breed. They can do that. They will be put down by mid-December if further owners are not found. I'm not really understanding this. I don't understand it. I mean, they're either the dogs are a danger and they need to be put down, or they're taken away from their owners who are a danger.
I think you can keep an XL bully if you follow very strict rules now, like keeping them on a muzzle and always on a lead.
Right.
So you can adopt them, but would you? That's what we're asking this morning.
Yeah.
Would you rescue an XL bully from a pound, essentially? GBViews at gbnews.com. Do let us know.
I mean, if you found a Paul Coit on the street, would you? Could you keep him in your house? Could you? That's the thing.
You would.
Oh, you would.
You would.
You wouldn't. You would, right?
They'd feed you milk and all sorts of
I've
things.
got a habit of...
Well, in that case, I know whose house I'd rather go to. With Sports Personality of the Year, Mary Earps wins it, the Lioness goalkeeper, very well deserved. And the Helen Rollison Award, which is for outstanding achievement in the face of adversity, goes to a former winner, the 1987 Sports Personality of the Year, and that's Fatima Whitbread, and she will be with us in about 20 minutes' time.
Ah, well deserved.
Absolutely.
Look forward to talking to her.
Yeah.
The weather will be from Aidan McGivern today. Aidan?
It's a bright start in the south, but cloudy for many others. And the cloud, the wind and the rain will increase over the next 24 hours. turning increasingly unsettled. I'll have the full details of the forecast coming up.
Any of our discussions, you can join in on them, and you have been doing that today. We had a big debate about trophy hunting about half an hour ago on the programme. Claire says, I think it's perhaps it's humans, particularly hunters, that need culling, not the deer. Mary says inexperienced shooters can just severely injure the deer. They don't necessarily kill with the first shot, leaving the deer in agony. So there's quite a lot of reaction to that.
Yeah, Jenny says trophy hunting should be completely banned, and Robert says these companies need to be closed down. It's the disgusting people who pay for them so that they can kill animals. Well, do keep those views coming in on any of the stories we're talking about.
Well, the NHS, the doctor strikes, which we're going to talk about today. John says, let's face it, the NHS is finished. These strikes are the final nails to full UK privatisation. Brian says the Tories have destroyed the NHS deliberately so they and their cronies can force privatisation onto the British public. Now, is that a view that you adhere to? Do you actually believe that? gbviews@gbnews.com, or you can tweet at gbnews.
Now, inflation has fallen by more than expected last month to its lowest level in more than 2 years.
It's down from 4.6% in October. It's sitting now at 3.9% this month. Here's what the Chancellor had to say this morning.
A year ago, inflation was 11.1%. Now it's fallen to 3.9%, the lowest for over 2 years. And that shows the government's plan for the economy is working. But nonetheless, it is very tough for a lot of families. And that's why from next month, national insurance contributions will go down by 2%. That's worth £450 a year for someone on the average wage. And I hope that will make a difference to a lot of families up and down the country.
You're welcoming this news, but we're going into another year of inflation at double the target. Prices are still going up. Interest rates have soared. This is not a happy outlook for many, many families, is it?
Well, the only way that we can make life better for families who are working very hard and feeling that they are in a cost of living crisis, the like of which they haven't seen for many, many years, is to get the economy growing sustainably. And that means you have to bring down inflation. And that's why the Prime Minister's main pledge at the start of this year was to halve inflation. He has more than delivered that. Once you do that, once you do the hard work to squeeze inflation out of the system, you can start looking forward to the kind of growth that will see people's wages going up. On top of which, when we can, we want to bring down the tax burden so that people keep more of the money that they earn every month.
You mentioned the Prime Minister's target there. As you know, there's a lively debate about who's really responsible. It's the Bank of England's job to bring down inflation. They pull the lever that really counts. Is it a commentary on this government's record that the one pledge that's been delivered on inflation of the five is actually the one that ministers have least control over?
It is because the government took very difficult decisions, particularly in the autumn statement that I delivered a year ago, that what the government does in terms of tax and spend and what the Bank of England does in terms of interest rates work together to bring the inflation rate down. If we hadn't taken those difficult decisions, we wouldn't have this dramatic reduction in inflation today. But there's still further to go. Inflation never falls in a straight line, and what we want to do for families up and down the country is to move away from this era of prices continually going up, because we know what pressure it's putting on family budgets.
And if I may, just very quick, we have doctors' strikes again today. Isn't it time you got them in and offered a pay deal that ends this damaging action? It's damaging for patients, it's damaging for the NHS.
Well, I think these strikes are incredibly disappointing. They're disappointing for patients most of all. Victoria Atkins, the Health Secretary, said her door is open for constructive discussions. And when it comes to this government's commitment to the NHS, we have 25,000 more doctors than we had in 2010. We've increased funding by more than a third in real terms. So we've shown our commitment to the NHS, and more than 1 million NHS workers have recognised that by settling for a fair and reasonable pay deal. And I hope junior doctors do the same.
Well, that's the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Jeremy Hunt, speaking about the doctor strikes, but also that falling inflation figure. So let's go now to our West Midlands reporter, Jack Carson, who joins us now from a Christmas market in Birmingham. Very good morning to you, Jack. So inflation is falling now at 3.9%, better than expected. But what does this mean for ordinary people?
Yeah, of course. The fact that it is still inflation means, of course, prices are still high. They are still technically going up, of course, on what they were last year. But of course, they are consecutively, it's consecutively falling now. So that will be better news. And a lot of what we're paying for our food, particularly, is now the same as what it was this time last year. Of course, the figure of inflation coming down very much. The ONS say that falling fuel prices were a big part of that. They fell between October and December by about 4.1p to stand on average around the country, about 151p per litre last month. And overall, that's a slowdown, of course, in about 10.6% from this time last year. So we're paying less at the pump, which of course is better news and has helped really drive that inflation figure down, of course, to 3.9%. And that's a 0.7% drop from what it was in October. But of course, it's food prices, especially as we are coming up to Christmas now, that people particularly will be looking at as they're looking, of course, to put on that big feast on Christmas Day. Well, food prices have now fallen for 8 months in a row. The inflation figure of food is now 9.2% last month. That's down from 10.1% of October, which is better news. And as I was saying earlier, that is the lowest that it's been since last May. But of course, people with this inflation, it's still being inflation with prices still being high, they are cutting down on their Christmas budgets. On average, people are going to spend £280 less than last year. Now, that is obviously quite a big decrease, and when you add that up across the economy, that's about £13 billion less on average going into the economy this year, because of course that cost of living crisis, meaning people are having to balance buying presents for family and friends, of course buying that food. We know as well that a big proportion of people are buying smaller joints of turkey or beef, whatever meat they're having on their Christmas dinner on Christmas Day. They're buying a smaller kilogram of meat because they want to save every penny that they can. And of course, overall, according to Top Cashback, which is who's done this survey, they say that 26% of people in the UK have less than £300 to cover all of their costs. Of course, as I said, that is on average around £280 less than they maybe would have spent in previous years. So of course, people are still cutting back, but this inflation figure still coming down is better news for people. Of course, the Chancellor very clear, as you heard, that he feels like the UK is back onto this path of sustainable growth. He's hoping that this national insurance cut that he's brought in will help people a little bit more. But of course, as we're here at this Christmas market, we're going to get some reaction to that figure a little bit later today.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. That's Jack Carson there, our West Midlands reporter. Now, junior doctors have begun a 3-day walkout with less than a week to go until Christmas. The British Medical Association, that's the union representing the strikers, says the government has still not presented a credible offer that could end the action. We are just looking at live pictures now from outside a hospital in Nottingham, the picket line there, the BMA in their orange beanies. Quite a strong presence there outside that hospital in Nottingham. That dispute has been ongoing for more than a year now. Well, let's find out more from our London reporter now, Lisa Hartle, who comes to us from central London. Good morning to you, Lisa, and what's going on behind you?
Hello. Well, yes, as we know, it's the busiest time of the year for the NHS with flu season. We're seeing rising levels of COVID at the moment, neurovirus. So it comes as a bit of a surprise for some people that junior doctors are going on strike from today. 3-day walkout from today. And then on the 3rd of January, a 6-day walkout is planned. But just to explain more about why this is happening, I'm joined by Sumi, a doctor from the British Medical Association. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. So a lot of people are obviously concerned, as I was saying there, it's the busiest time of the year for the NHS. How is this going to impact on patients when there's so many doctors that are going to be on strike for such a long period of time?
So this is our 8th round of strike action. We have taken strike action 8 times now. This is a well-oiled machine at this point. The NHS has senior consultants and doctors who step down to cover for us when we're on strike action. so there isn't going to be an impact. And any elderly patients who are concerned about getting home in time for Christmas needn't be. Consultants can discharge patients, and they will if you're safe to go home.
But we see today, Cheltenham Hospital, for example, they've closed their A&E department while the strike action is on. Surely that's going to have an impact on patients, won't it?
So they've diverted their services, and this is the safe thing to do. We have regular meetings with NHS where we discuss any safety concerns and we address them right then and there. So if there was a safety concern here, it would have been addressed.
So this is a dispute that's been going on since last December. As you said, there's 25 days strike action that's been taken by junior doctors so far. 1.2 million appointments and operations that have been cancelled or postponed. How much longer do you think this is going on for? I mean, it's the 35% pay increase that the junior doctors are calling for. That's just such a, some people are saying, such a steep amount to be asking for.
It's only a steep amount because of how much we've lost. Our dispute's been going on for 14 months now. That's 14 months that the government could have used to come to the table and offer a credible offer. No junior doctor wants to go on strike. We go to medical school for 5 years, graduate with £100,000 of debt, and all we're asking for is for that doctor to be paid £20 an hour. That's affordable and reasonable.
Now, one of the I've covered this dispute a few times now. And one of the things that has been told to me a few times is the fact that the doctors say if this pay rise doesn't come along, then more doctors are going to be lost from the NHS, and the NHS is going to suffer.
So I've got an anecdote that really explains what's happening in the NHS right now. So I work in the emergency department, so I see the sickest of patients that come into hospital. And I saw a lady the other day, and she came in complaining of chest pain. And this is a serious symptom. It could indicate any number of underlying diseases. But actually, the one that we're worried about is having a heart attack. And she came in and she said, well, actually, this pain started yesterday. And I asked her, like, why haven't you come in? This is a serious symptom. And if this happened again, I would want you to come in on the day it happened. And actually, she had come in. She'd been waiting for over 12 hours. And the reason that patients aren't getting the treatment that they need, the reason that they're having worse outcomes than their colleagues in the rest of Europe, is because there aren't enough doctors here. We need 50,000 more doctors in the UK to have the same level of coverage like they do in European countries. And, you know, the public are suffering for it. And the reason that we can't retain our doctors is because we're not paying them enough.
How hopeful are you that the government will give junior doctors 35%?
Well, we need to be thinking about what will happen if they don't give junior doctors 35%. What will happen if they don't restore their pay, if they don't value the doctors that work in our system? There won't be an NHS because the driving force behind the NHS are its workers. And, you know, 80% of the public said over summer that the NHS is not being funded appropriately. If we don't fund the NHS, i.e. its workers, what are we left with? Just machines that can't work by themselves.
And a lot of, I was talking to you before we came on air about a lot of charities, including Age UK, are saying today that it's going to be older people that are most affected by this strike action. Claims that perhaps people will be left in hospital over Christmas because there won't be enough doctors to discharge them.
So our strike action ends on the 23rd and doesn't restart until the 3rd of January. There will be enough doctors during that period and before, because our senior doctors and clinicians are stepping down to cover. They will be able to discharge patients if they're safe to go home.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning, and we'll come back to you throughout the rest of the day, but thank you so much for giving us your time. As we said, that this is a start of a 3-day strike action, and then on the 3rd of January, that'll be a 6-day walkout by junior doctors, and they've got a mandate that lasts until February.
Okay. All of that to look forward to, Lisa. Thank you very much indeed. It is unbelievable. Here we are, this festive season. And whether it's news about wars, whether it's about the economy, whether it is about strikes like that, oh, let's have some animal pictures. That's what we'll do.
We need something,
give you a smile, right? OK, let's have a look at the photos that have been coming in from you with your furry friends today. Kelly says, here's my dog, Lola. That looks like a person to me. Isn't it? Oh, there's
a dog in there as well.
Sorry, I see the dog there as well. Yes, couldn't see it. Right, OK.
She went on a trip to see Santa Paws, which I love.
Oh,
very,
yes,
very good.
Oh.
Lola and Santa Paws. This is, next one is, Sarah says, this is Ruby Roo, the cockapoo. Oh, it rhymes. Getting all Christmas ready for her first Christmas in her antlers.
Oh.
Very lovely.
Paxo. Well, I hope you're not for stuffing Paxo, but anyway, Paxo's a German pointer, beautiful-looking dog.
Great name.
In the Christmas spirit.
His little hat. Sarah says, this is our dog Elsie, dressed as a reindeer. Well, that is lovely, with antlers on. and a little jumper as well.
Right. And Michelle, hello Michelle, good morning to you. That's Michelle's Remy. Remy is a female dog, and Remy is in a Christmas outfit.
I'd say a cape, a Christmas cape.
Oh, yeah. It's like my dog has a mantle, yeah, right, like a gown, yeah.
That's very regal.
It is, she's a queen, Queen Maggie. And Remy is a year and a half old, 18 months old. Sarah says...
This is our dog Billy in his Santa hat and scarf, and he looks like a polar bear.
Well done, Billy.
Very festive.
And Mark says, this is my grumpy cat, Lockie, struggling to get into the Christmas spirit. Lockie's having none of it.
Oh, it looks a bit like my cat that I've adopted. And Robert says, here is Felix and Louis at Christmas. How lovely are they? Oh, sadly, they're no longer with us, but we miss them dearly at Christmas.
Well, I always remembered them.
Beautiful
right,
cats.
which leads us to a little problem with you. So Miss Ellie has... well, she's done a wonderful thing. She believes she rescued a very thin, scrawny
cold cat.
It was like she thought it was near death's door, basically. But then she got home and, like Scrooge, she went to bed and had a dream and dreamt of Christmas pasts. And the cat looks so well, doesn't you know? But I saw the other pictures.
Looking after him.
Yeah, I saw the other pictures where he did not look good. Matter of fact, you don't know if he's a man or a woman, do you?
I haven't worked it out. I think he's a boy. I'm calling him Smittens.
Yeah.
But he has got a collar on, which makes me... Well, he's owned by somebody.
Yeah, but here's the problem. The problem is now Miss Ellie may think she is a catnapper. She thinks she may have stolen someone else's cat. But what you planned is, so what should she do? Let us know what she should do about this. I mean, this is a dilemma. She's keeping the cat well, and the cat looks very healthy and things. But so here's the dilemma.
So I posted it on Facebook, on the local Facebook group. I've spoken to the neighbours. The next step, I think, is taking it to the vets and seeing if it's got a microchip. And then I can return him or her in time for Christmas.
Well, that's nice, but you don't want to do that, really.
No, I don't.
Just say the vet goes beep, 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 beep. Oh, there's a chip here and it belongs to so-and-so.
And then I have to hand it back.
Can you not sort of have a threepence or a threesome or whatever?
I might suggest that. I'd say, look, if you're ever on holiday, I'm your gal. Give me a ring. Because I think we've got a very close relationship now.
No, so that you could share the cat with another family.
That's what I'm saying. I'll say to them.
Didn't sound like that. It sounded something immoral there, but anyway.
I'll just say they can share with me, and I'm happy to look after it when they go on holiday.
Well, that's good. Who's going to look after Aidan McGivern? He's the man with a weather plan.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning. It's Aidan McKibben here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. It's a bright start in the south. It's not going to last. We're going to see increasingly cloudy weather across the whole of the UK, and in many places it will be damp and breezy. We're starting with the damp conditions across northern parts of the country. Outbreaks of rain, persistent and heavy over western hills, and some flakes of snow at first over the Scottish mountains. But otherwise, this is mild air that's arriving from the Atlantic. So after an early chill in the south, it turns cloudier and it turns milder into the afternoon, although it's not going to feel particularly warm as the winds pick up. Temperatures widely in the double figures. And as we go into the evening, it's going to stay mild because of the cloud cover, because of the breeze. And actually, that breeze is going to strengthen overnight. We're going to see gales arriving into the north and northwest of the UK. Spells of rain pushing southeastwards across the country, followed by blustery showers for Scotland. And it's certainly going to be a lively start to Thursday. A mild start, frost-free across the country, although not feeling mild, obviously, because of the increasingly strong wind. That wind could bring some disruptive conditions, especially over northern hills and northern coasts, with the risk of 70 or even higher mile-per-hour wind gusts for the upland parts of northern England and Scotland, as well as the coastal parts of northern Scotland. And there'll be frequent showers carried in on that wind, although in between some brighter spells. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now, Boxed Boilers are sponsoring the weather. We're going to sponsor you to £10,000 in cash, brand new tech and shopping vouchers if you enter and if you're successful in...
the Great British Giveaway. The very first one. You could be the very first winner. Here's all the details of how you could make those prizes yours.
Good luck.
It's the Great British Giveaway, your chance to grab some amazing prizes and start your new year the right way. You could win an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Imagine having all of that extra cash in your bank account. We'll also bring you bang up to date with the very latest iPhone 15 Pro Max. And we'll give you £500 worth of shopping vouchers to spend in the store of your choice. For another chance to win the iPhone, the vouchers and £10,000 cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB01, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 5th of January. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Good luck.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it? £10,000 in time for Christmas.
We're spoiling you. We're spoiling you. And then it raises the question, children at Christmas. Are they spoiled? Of course they are. Of course they are. Most children are spoiled. I mean, I've had to do charities where children don't get presents and things, and that's a great joy when you can see those who have lots, you know, sharing it out with kids who don't have lots. But the whole thing, I mean, when I was young, my father always used to say, the trouble with you lot, me and my four brothers, is you just get too bloomin' much.
Oh.
That's what he would say. Were you ever accused of that?
Yes. My dad used to say that to us a lot, actually, and I never thought we were.
Yeah, that's the thing.
In my book, we never
so
were.
if you're a child, you never think you are being spoiled. If you're an adult, you do. We've got a few theories on this. We've got a debate on this happening right after the break.
We're late. Get up!
This Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, wake up with GB News.
For the finest festive start to your Christmas for you and the whole family.
Christmas breakfast on GB News, Christmas Eve and Christmas Day from 6 a.m.
I got you this.
Oh, good. OK, I got you a little something.
Oh, I'm sure it's nice.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Put in your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
every Sunday from 11. Join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Breakfast with Eamonn and Ellie.
Now, it's just 5 days to go until Christmas Day, which is the time to spoil your kids, right? Well, actual research suggests that children would be better developed if they received fewer presents.
Right. Let's talk to a psychologist from the Cove practice in London. No, we're not going to do that, but where they have carried out a study, and they have suggested that parents should only get their children a maximum of 2 presents each. I don't really hear much parents objecting about this so far.
But is that a bit mean? Or is the rise in consumerism breeding generations of spoiled brats? You'll have an opinion on this one. So today we're asking the question, are kids being spoilt at Christmas?
Well, here is journalist Julie Cook, who thinks they are. And I agree with you, Julie, I think so. And blogger Emma Bradley, who thinks they're not. And if I was 7 years of age, I would agree with you, Emma, but I'm not. So why do you think they're not being spoiled?
So I think, you know, it's once a year. If you work hard all year to celebrate Christmas and spoil your kids rotten, why not? You know, parents have a choice what to spend their money on. And if they choose that to be their children and that to be their priority, good luck to them, I say. No judgment.
But isn't that a bit unfair for the kiddies that don't have parents that earn a lot of money, that can't get a lot at Christmas? It does kind of create that disparity, doesn't it? Especially in the classroom when they're talking about the gifts they got.
No, I don't think so. I mean, children don't tend to judge other children. It's adults that do that. It's us adults that put those thoughts into children's heads. So I think as long as your children are appreciative, and, you know, spoiling is relative. You could say that. You can go to one school, though, and you think you've spoilt your child, and actually their haul is a lot less to their peers. So I think, you know, this idea about spoiling your children is really relative to where you come from anyway.
Emma, it's relative to what advertising they look at in magazines and television. They know more than any adult on what's available there. So, Julie, nothing's going to convince me that they get too much and they don't appreciate what's there. And do you know what I think the biggest problem, Julie, is? Not so much mum and dad, but cousins and aunties and uncles and girlfriends and boyfriends who buy things for them and just overload, overstack, overindulge.
Yeah, I definitely think children get too much. Mine certainly do and have done all their lives. And they don't think they have enough. That's the thing. And the other thing is when my daughter was very young and, you know, you buy basically plastic toys and wooden toys and whatnot, she'd play with them for 2 minutes and then they just slowly make a pile in the corner of the room, and that's where they would languish for the next year until you throw them out or give them to someone else.
Exactly.
But I also agree with what you just said, which is one thing that really gets me is when people say, oh, Father Christmas got me this. And Father Christmas is meant to be, you know, egalitarian and give everybody the same. But the trouble is when people say Father Christmas got me a PS5 and somebody else says, oh, well, Father Christmas only got me some socks and a teddy. That makes children, and I disagree, I think children do compare each other to their peers. They think, well, why did Father Christmas not get me as much as somebody else? And that I think is deeply unfair.
Yeah, and what's also unfair, I would say, Emma, is when Father Christmas leaves things that the real father can't play with. And there's just not enough amusement to go around the whole family. I just think you keep your daddy happy at home, and everybody's happy because he's going to have to play with most of the things anyway, with what goes on. But I do think there is a terrible situation about overindulgence. But what would you suggest in terms of regularising people's expectations?
So I think, have conversations with your children, your young people, find out what they really want. I mean, I asked mine for a Christmas list, so I know they're not going to be things that are stacked and left in the corner as well. And my gifts often include, clothes that I wouldn't normally, like designer brands and things that I wouldn't buy throughout the year for them. So they're treats. And I think, that is important to me, and that is how we top up their wardrobes as well for the rest of the year. So it's not all plastic tat in a corner. Yes. And I think that's important as well.
Yeah, making it look different, making it feel special, whatever it is. Paul, what tips would you have with your kids and through the years and what you did with them?
The word spoil means you've spoilt the kids. In other words, you've ruined the kids by giving them all these things and they're acting spoilt and act up. But sometimes if you buy a lot of presents, if they behave, exactly, and if they appreciate it, then it's up to the parent.
Feel good about it.
I don't have a problem with it, as long as the kids don't say, I need this, I want that, I don't want that. That's when you see a kid that's spoiled.
And your kids are lovely.
Well, thank you, Ellen.
And they'd be very appreciative.
Or imagine saying, Santa brought me this and I don't want it.
I know. Can you imagine such a thing?
Oh, terrible thing. Julie and Emma, thank you both very much indeed. Unfortunately, I've got to be bad Santa and say goodbye to the two of you. I hope you have been good and Santa's good to you too as well. Thank you very much.
Do you know the average spend on Christmas gifts? It's a lot. £602 each on children.
I can believe that.
I believe it too.
It's a lot of money, isn't it?
I believe it too.
For people. I feel bad for parents that aren't earning that sort of money.
I remember my dad said years ago, and he said one Christmas when he was a kid, he got an orange and a pair of scissors. I never quite worked out what he did with those, but an orange and a pair of scissors.
Sliced the throat of whoever left him in the first place. Yes, very good. Back for the break. We've got Fatima Whitbread. She got a big prize at Sports Personality last night. We're honoured to talk to her after this.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Just got a little problem with Fatima Whitbread and communications from Manchester after last night's Sports Personality of the Year. But the big news there is Mary Earps winning in a stunning outfit and winning a stunning prize. She won the top prize.
She did, and she's a stunning goalkeeper as well. She really is. She's done a fantastic job. There she is yesterday. Look at that. Look at the size of that trophy. I think she probably gets a copy of it, but third woman in a row now.
Where do you put it, a trophy that big?
I don't know. I just put it in the middle of the room, wouldn't you? Just dance around it. I mean, you'd put it wherever you keep it. But there's
they'll find a place.
I think they will. 70th Sports Personality of the Year. Used to be the Sports Review of the Year. There's all the presenters there with Mary. And not only just the fact that she's a great goalkeeper, but it's always got to be a good story. And there is a great story with it as well. She's a very successful goalkeeper. Then she hit a bad time for a couple of years and then fought against it, came back into the England squad. And Serena Wiegmann saw the talent that she had and kept her there, and then goes on to the World Cup, won the Euros. And honestly, it's a really good story. And and also, we've met it's a great personality, which is also
Did that personality
a bonus.
Did that come out through swearing? Did she win it because she had a rant?
It wasn't just through the swearing. No,
I'm just saying, was that a
did
factor?
she say what a wonderful time with a few curse words in the middle? I don't think so.
Well, it certainly showed she had a personality.
Yes, it certainly does.
I think people like that as well. I think British people especially really like that.
What, just to swear constantly?
But she was a legend after that, wasn't she?
You know what?
But she was absolutely right. I mean, in that situation where she reiterated to her team or to...
Showed passion, didn't it?
Correct.
It showed a lot. It did show a lot of passion. The other personalities that won, by the way, last night, there was Mia Brooks. Now, Mia Brooks, you may not have heard of her, snowboarder, and she's a world champion. She's 16 years old. 16. And she'd only just turned 16 when she won this world title. So she was well deserved the young sports personality. Came up, gave a speech. Unbelievable for a 16-year-old. Wow. Lifetime achievement was Sir Kenny Dalglish.
Yeah, that was a nice touch, I thought.
I think so as well.
Very good. Nice man. Liverpool hero, Celtic hero, great footballer for Scotland. But do you know Kenny?
I've met Kenny very briefly. I haven't had a conversation with Kenny.
I wouldn't expect the likes of you to know people like that, but I know him very well, and his wife Marina.
I'm sure your Man United fans will be also pleased to know you've got such a good friend in a Liverpool player. Good for you.
He's had a few stories about that too, but yeah, he's a good man, and that was a well worthwhile award.
Family on one side of the stage, ex-players on the other. During his speech, and he said, he was talking about his life and talking about family. He got up, very emotional when he was talking about his wife, and said about the fact that it's not the taking part. It's the winning that counts, which is the old Pierre de Coubertin phrase from the Olympic Games. But you know what? As much as everybody says about the taking part, it's not. When it comes to sport, it's about the winning, and that's what makes him so special.
I agree. Let's talk about Brody, the golden labradoodle.
Talking of winners.
Who took part. Well, I'm not sure if he took part or not, but this is a Lakers basketball match in the USA. Tell us about Brody.
Here's Brody. Now, it looks like a man dressed up in a bear suit, but that is Brody, the golden doodle, who has gone... Look at the front row seats. This is where Jack Nicholson usually sits when he goes to see
Maybe that
Lakers
was
play.
Jack Nicholson.
Far too much hair for Jack Nicholson. Also moving around far too much for Jack Nicholson these days. There's the owner there behind, and he's... I don't know how... Brody is actually an Instagram star now, and they're calling it a dog influencer. But he's working the dog from behind. I think Brody seemed quite... Look, there we are. And it's the dancing dog, and now goes on the screen and now becoming a huge fan. And you know what? And it is now going to be absolutely my quest on this show to get Brody on here. I think it's very important. I think it'd be great.
A great idea.
Absolutely.
It really is.
And I think we need more dogs courtside.
Do you think so?
That would make sport
well, there
a
used
lot
to
more
be
interesting.
days when you used to see football back in the day and the dog would run on the pitch. It goes back to the World Cup in '62. Would you ever see it where Jimmy Greaves is running over trying to catch this dog? Then you'd get, there's a famous one where the dog has a wee against the post. You don't get dogs at Premier League games anymore. And I think it's time to change.
I don't think people set out to go to the match and pack the dog as well.
Well, this is what I don't understand. How do they get in there in the first place? And how did Brody get in there? Are they thinking, oh, yeah, we're going to see a big basketball game. I'm going to take the dog with me.
Yeah, very, very true.
Oh, here. I'm
very excited about something as well.
Yeah, we've got live.
We did some awards, but there was one award that I didn't mention at the Sports Personality of the Year, and that was the Helen Rollison Award, which is a special award to someone that goes... It's a true achievement award against adversity, and it's someone that actually won Sports Personality of the Year in her own right in 1987, and the Helen Rollison Award winner, the legendary Fatima Whitbread. Morning, Fatima.
Congratulations, Fatima. Well done.
Hi, thank you. It's lovely to see you again, Eamonn.
Yeah.
I've got to say, though, when you walked in, that standing ovation, now, what was it like to walk into that? All your peers, the great sports people, you had all the other winners as well that were there. Everybody stood up and applauded you. It must have been amazing.
It was an amazing feeling. I was totally, it was unexpected. I didn't expect that at all. So I felt very touched, proud and privileged to be receiving such an accolade. I've always been a great supporter of the BBC Awards. They did a wonderful job last night, and I was proud to be a recipient of the Helen Rollison Award, because Helen was a friend. And I can remember giving Helen her first international interview, because I'd just won the World Championships, and she was a local girl. She lived in my same village, and she called me. She said, "Fat," she said, "is it possible? You could be my first trial interviewee," she said, for my career that I'm starting out in interviewing sports people. So it was wonderful, because she's now given me the platform to help these young vulnerable children, which is what it's all about. And I'm an advocate for children in the care system, as you know. I'm trying to rejuvenate the care system sector, which has been badly let down, I think, by the government. In the 50 years since I was in the care system, not a lot's changed.
Yeah.
And I've seen governments come and go, and they've kicked that same tin can down the road. And I'm so keen to rejuvenate the care system, and also do programs through fatimascampaign.com to help these young people to find their rightful place in the community, so they can be seen, heard and valued. It is so important.
You winning that award will put them right on the map, it has to be said. I liked the whole story. I liked all of that. I don't know about the Fats bit. Hey, Fats.
Yeah.
Are you okay with Fats as a nickname?
Yeah, it's always been. I've been called many a thing, Eamonn, so Fats isn't so bad.
Listen,
is
it should be Dame Fatima, as far as I'm concerned, there, Fatima. So that's probably that should be coming next. With the awards, though, I know this is a really tricky one, but obviously to win Sports Personality of the Year back in '87, when you were actually at the height of your javelin career, but then to win this one, does this mean even more to you, considering what you've been through to actually get there?
Well, I'm mighty proud to have won the BBC Sports Personality of the Year Awards. It is the top echelon, sports echelon that you can win because it's voted for by the public. And, back in the day, I was the Britain's sole gold medalist in the championships of Rome, the World Championships. So, it was a special moment for me and my mum, my adoptive mum, Margaret, who was my coach as well. And, I've got to be, very grateful for having this opportunity that Helen gave me from winning this award, because it's given me the opportunity to use my lived experience and my Olympic platform to get that message out there, which is so important for our young vulnerable children and our care leavers as well.
Have a great day, Fatima. We're out of time, and thank you for making the effort of speaking to us today. We're glad we squeezed you in, Fats.
Eamonn, don't forget fatimascampaign.com. Give generously, please, and help these young people.
Good way to spend Christmas. Thank you very much indeed.
Congrats.
Thanks. And don't you fats me.
I'm never going to fats you. I won't fats anybody.
Right, OK. Thank you very much indeed. Going through the headline makers today, Andy Jones, Alan Miller. And Alan, we want to start with Donald Trump in Colorado. The Supreme Court ruling that he can't run for president next year. Right. What do you think? Would it harm him? I mean, he could well contest it as well, and probably will. But what do you think of this initially?
Well, I'm sure he is going to contest it. It's going to go to the Supreme Court. We will know, viewers will know, that there's states' decisions in federal states, and then there's the actual Fed's decision nationally. The big question that's been addressed here is that he hasn't actually been put on trial by peers and been found guilty of something. So this legislation refers to the Civil War. It is untested somewhat, and it's some people would argue it's a very political motivation to try and prevent him from actually being in Colorado. It was 5-4 decision, so it was already slightly in the balance. It's certain that his lawyers will be challenging this and go there, but it does raise the question that surely if the American people decide he's not fit for purpose and that what he has done is unacceptable, then they will show that and demonstrate that. But this attempt to stop him standing at the ballot box raises some significant questions. And indeed, they've given him a bit of an argument to say that this is undemocratic.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what the Trump campaign is saying. They're saying this is undemocratic, and they have vowed to appeal, already saying they'll appeal to the US Supreme Court. What do you think of this, Andy?
He will face similar cases in Arizona, Michigan, Minnesota and New Hampshire. As Alan has discussed already, they're going to appeal this, and we'll get the outcome of that appeal in January. So, but hopefully this isn't. I mean, it will run and run and run, but hopefully this chapter of this will be over soon. The difficulty I find so sort of tiresome about this, whether you think of Trump or Biden, is we had Trump Biden last time. We may or may not have Trump Biden this time. Before that, it was sort of Trump Clinton. I feel like America has quite a dearth of talent. We have the same sort of figures knocking around over many, many decades, the same political families running American politics. I think it's time for fresh ideas. I mean, Trump's been pretty bulletproof in terms of his reputation, despite however many curveballs, self-inflicted or otherwise. It'd be nice to see some new names forward in America.
I want the both of you to fill me in now on what is happening with the Jeffrey Epstein situation, the late Jeffrey Epstein. Prince Andrew, the theory is that he's going to face fresh scrutiny. Why is that, Alan?
Well, because there's a situation now that it's going to be heard in 14 days' time. We're told that there's going to be an unearthing and a reporting of all of this that's previously up until now been confidential. There's allegations about him molesting an individual whilst holding a spitting image puppet. You couldn't quite make it up. And so what we're now seeing, though, is some people are getting very excited about this. This is interestingly at the same time as Julian Assange discussion is going on about that actually getting some more hearing. But the question around Jeffrey Epstein, for many people, is how come so many famous, wealthy people were involved and didn't part company? And this is obviously a very embarrassing situation for the royal house with Prince Andrew in the situation. It's a bit tawdry, isn't it?
And it's this wider picture, isn't it? A judge has now ruled that this wider list of associates and friends of Jeffrey Epstein is going to be released on New Year's Day.
Yes, so Victoria Guthrie, who made these allegations, which were subsequently proven in court against Epstein. Epstein went down, as did Ghislaine Maxwell, and the 177 people were named on a list of associates. And it's like, well, how have we got charges of sex trafficking, but we haven't got any of the people who were involved in, obviously, abusing these individuals? Of this 177, many of them, the named list of associates are going to be Epstein members of staff, butlers, security, whatever, who are probably just there because they live and work on the island. However, there are going to be other major names. Various individuals have been photographed and associated with Epstein in this time. Will they be implicated? Alan touched on the story a moment ago of potential more allegations against Prince Andrew being made public. Johanna Sjoberg had alleged that Prince Andrew groped her at a mansion in New York City, and there were some mentions of a spitting image puppet of Prince Andrew involved. This story is potentially going to run. The Sun say that case is going to get more of an airing. There's also allegations against Prince Andrew as well that he's brought arms traders into a royal house. So, again, friends of Prince Andrew, problematic.
Now, guys, since I won't see either of the two of you again before Christmas, I just thought we'd finish on a little Christmas note. And I was thinking about what I looked forward to most and what I hoped on my Santa's list. We used to put the list up the chimney. You would put it on the coal fire and it would carry up the chimney. That's the way it went, if it didn't burn before it got there. But I always, for me, the toy that you could get me at Christmas was Action Man. And I had eventually 13 Action Men. 13. Yeah, I had an army.
Wow.
An Action Army.
Football team.
Yeah. Did you have a football table?
A football team of Action Men.
Yes.
Might do better than
You just
the
reminded me that
team.
as I got older, that the next favourite toy or game was Subbuteo. Loved Subbuteo. What about you? Was there anything?
Subbuteo. I wasn't very good at it. I had Boglins as well, which were like hand puppets that were like gremlins.
Yeah.
And I liked Lego. I loved Lego. And what else did I like? My mum and dad, Denise and Alan, are going to be very upset I don't remember all my childhood toys. All of that stuff.
All that stuff.
Transformers I loved as well.
Robots in disguise.
Yeah.
Alan, what about you?
Well, I loved things that are unfashionable now that are being banned, like Enid Blyton books, and I loved going out and playing rough and tumble all day long and coming back when it was dark, which unfortunately adults have stopped doing that with children, but I encourage that as much as possible.
OK, well, hold on to that.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning. It's Aidan McKibben here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. It's a bright start in the south. It's not going to last. We're going to see increasingly cloudy weather across the whole of the UK, and in many places it will be damp and breezy. We're starting with the damp conditions across northern parts of the country. Outbreaks of rain, persistent and heavy over western hills, and some flakes of snow at first over the Scottish mountains. But otherwise, this is mild air that's arriving from the Atlantic. So after an early chill in the south, it turns cloudier and it turns milder into the afternoon, although it's not going to feel particularly warm as the winds pick up. Temperatures widely in the double figures. And as we go into the evening, it's going to stay mild because of the cloud cover, because of the breeze. And actually, that breeze is going to strengthen overnight. We're going to see gales arriving into the north and northwest of the UK. Spells of rain pushing southeastwards across the country, followed by blustery showers for Scotland. And it's certainly going to be a lively start to Thursday. A mild start, frost-free across the country, although not feeling mild, obviously, because of the increasingly strong wind. That wind could bring some disruptive conditions, especially over northern hills and northern coasts, with the risk of 70 or even higher mile-per-hour wind gusts for the upland parts of northern England and Scotland, as well as the coastal parts of northern Scotland. And there'll be frequent showers carried in on that wind, although in between some brighter spells. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Wake up to the headlines with headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on this Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show, every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
9 o'clock, right on the button. A very good morning to you. 20th of December. We're now 5 days away from Christmas, and this is Breakfast with Eamonn and Ellie.
And this is what we've been covering on Breakfast this morning. It was the strike before Christmas. Junior doctors begin a 3-day walkout over poor working conditions and pay. The Work and Pension Secretary Mel Stride told us the strikes are unnecessary.
I think it's deeply disappointing that the doctors have walked away from these talks. We've managed to secure pay settlements now really pretty much right across the rest of the public sector, and including agreements within the NHS and other staff that are being put out to ballot.
The very latest on this and how it will affect you. Lisa Hartle, our reporter outside University College Hospital. Lisa, good morning.
This comes at the busiest time of the year for the NHS, with COVID cases on the up and winter flu cases rising, whilst charities like Age UK are asking or saying that this is going to impact on older people the most.
Next year in the States. More on this throughout the day on GB News, and we'll be asking, what does it mean for his chances in the 2024 US election?
Maybe it'll be a Merry Christmas after all. Inflation has fallen more than expected. It's standing at 3.9%. It's a surprise boost for mortgage holders. The Chancellor said this.
A year ago, inflation was 11.1%. Now it's fallen to 3.9%, the lowest for over 2 years. And that shows the government's plan for the economy is working.
And we'll be going live to Manchester Dogs Home, where dozens of exiled bullies have ended up abandoned since the government started cracking down on the breed.
And the breed owners. Let's get the all-important weather picture. Aidan McGivern. Aidan, good morning.
It's a bright start in the south, but cloudy for many others. And the cloud, the wind and the rain will increase over the next 24 hours, turning increasingly unsettled. I'll have the full details in the forecast coming up.
Ellie's right across what you've been saying. What have folks been saying?
Yeah.
GB Views at GB News, remember, that's what to do.
Yeah, Ian on the doctor's strike says surely if the Tories didn't support the NHS, then the NHS wouldn't exist. They've had endless opportunities to get rid of it.
Assisted dying, we've also been debating that this morning. Samantha says, how dare anyone tell you that you've got to stay alive and suffer? It's disgusting. Graham says, we must have the option. I've watched 3 close family members suffer dreadfully and die from disease and die in agony.
Yeah, and on reindeer hunting, there's a British company offering trips to Norway to do just that. Sandra says, I'm appalled. In what world is there any place for killing animals for sport and enjoyment? And we'll do keep those emails coming in.
Do you know, it's interesting. In Belfast, there's a place called Belfast Castle. And when I was a kid, used to go and visit Belfast Castle, and you'd walk through, and in the foyer, there would be big heads, deer heads and horns. And, you know, as kids, we would go, my dad would tell us great stories about how this one attacked him and he had to kill it and whatever. We all believed my dad put the heads up there type thing. But I was in a few weeks ago and they're all gone.
I bet they are.
So they're not deemed to be something that you would show off
Glorify
or people
anymore.
would glorify is a good word. Yes,
yeah,
glorify.
well, exactly. And that's the question, really, isn't it? In 2023, should we still be trophy hunting?
Yeah.
Should it be allowed?
Well, we think not. GBViews at gbnews.com.
Yeah, keep.
Let's go back to the strike line now. The latest on the junior doctors' 3-day strike. Lisa Hartle, we go to her. Lisa, good morning.
As we were saying before, this is the busiest time of the year for the NHS, with norovirus cases on the rise, COVID cases on the rise, and of course we're coming into flu season. So some people are concerned that, of course, that with this strike action starting at this time, the impact this is going to have on patients. Now, what are doctors asking for? Junior doctors are asking for a 35% pay rise. They're currently on about £15 an hour, so they want to see that risen up to about £20 an hour. This is a dispute that's been going on since last December. So far, they've had 25 days of strike action. 1.2 million appointments or operations postponed or cancelled during that time. But having spoken to some of the junior doctors here today and putting the questions to them, what about the impact this is going to have on people, especially at the busiest time? And they say that this is a well-oiled machine now. Because they've been going on so many strike action days, there's a plan in place to ensure that no patients are put at risk. But they say that they're doing this because if they don't, more and more junior doctors will be leaving the NHS, and therefore patients will suffer in the long term. So they say that they feel like it's something that they absolutely have to do. And this action, as I said, is going to last for 3 days, and then on the 3rd of January there's going to be a 6-day walkout. So that means over the next 3 weeks there's only going to be 4 days when the NHS is running at fully operational ways that it would normally do.
Now, Lisa, when I spoke to you at the top of the hour, there was some booing and hissing going on. Who would draw that sort of attention? There they go again. What's that about?
Sorry, as you said that, there was a lorry that went by and beeped. Were you talking about Could you repeat that? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm talking about why do they boo, why do they hiss, why do they applaud? What's the choreography of that?
Well, it's just people the traffic going by, people are showing appreciation for the what the doctors are doing. Obviously, it's a divisive thing because if you've got your loved one in hospital at the moment, then you're going to be worried for them. You know, you don't want their operations cancelled. You want them to be ensure they're getting as much care as possible. But on the other hand, like the doctors are saying, there's a lot of support for them because a lot of people think that, well, yeah, they should be on at least £20 an hour. They shouldn't be on £15 an hour.
Yeah.
So, yeah, as we've been stood here all morning, there's been a lot of support that's been shown for them from passing traffic.
OK, right, we see that. We're picking that up. Thank you very much.
Now, to developments. Colorado's Supreme Court has ruled that Donald Trump cannot run for president next year in the state.
It ruled that Mr. Trump was not an eligible candidate. He had engaged in insurrection in the US Capitol riot 3 years ago.
So, how was this possible? Let's find out more from finance and geopolitics expert Dr. Roger Gewolb, and friend of the programme, may I add. Very good to see you,
Look, Roger, here's the thing. Every negative that comes his way, he eats it up, he fires it back as a positive. Will he be able to do that with this?
Oh, gosh, yes, absolutely. I mean, this is descending into a real battle. It's gotten so bad. Actually, I understand that the Florida Democrats, I'm in Florida, I've come over for a couple of days, where, by the way, it's colder than in London tonight.
Really?
Yeah. The Florida Democrats, I understand, are trying to meet with Elon Musk. They want to offer him an extension on his Cape Canaveral space facility, provided he puts Trump on a SpaceX rocket to Mars as quickly as possible.
Oh, right.
They're trying all kinds of tricks. This latest one, they have taken Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution, which actually was enacted just after the American Civil War to keep Confederates, secessionists, from re-entering American politics when the southern states rejoined the Union. They accused them of insurrection. I think this is going to be a giant Supreme Court case because you can't really take away the right of someone to vote because a bunch of politically appointed judges said he did something wrong. This is going to be challenged, and I think he'll probably win it. And yes, if you look at the bookies, particularly the British bookies, Trump's lead just keeps getting greater and greater. Nobody is near him. And old Joe Biden is now about to be indicted himself for being the head of what the press calls the Biden crime family. So it's an incredible battle going on between these two parties. And the other thing I've noticed is that Americans, I mean, you talk to people about Gaza or Ukraine and they yawn. All they want to talk about is American presidential politics.
Well, that is what is so remarkable, isn't it? That time and time again, as Eamonn was saying, it just feeds into his popularity. And even now, this decision, it does feed into Trump's narrative that it is him versus the establishment, that the establishment is out to get him. And his voters, or would-be voters, will very much, I imagine, see this as undemocratic. Do you think there is any concern from the Trump campaign that this could lead to more courts or more states wishing to follow suit?
Oh, sure. I mean, there has to be some concern when you're, charged and you have, and your right-hand man, Rudy Giuliani, is fined $150 million by the jury. They have weaponized the judiciary in many places, and it's just all out of proportion. So sure, they've got to worry somewhat, but he just eats this up, and I think it's just speaking to Americans of all ilk, it's very obvious, the tactics that the Democrats are doing, and they get more and more worried about old Joe because, he's allegedly done some terrible things, which he could be indicted for. And also, his health is in question. So they're in a really sticky place because they've got nobody really to put in his place. And Trump is really just eating them all for breakfast.
Roger, got to leave it there. Happy Christmas to you. Compliments of the season. Thanks for your time and your analysis.
Thank you, Nelson.
Thank you. Happy Christmas, both.
Thank you.
you very much. Now,
I just notice I do a lot of shouting when people are on a line. Because he's in Florida, I'm sort of talking to him as if he can't hear me. And he can probably... Technology means he can hear me just, you know, really, really well.
Yes, well.
So, bye, Roger. Right, OK. Breaking news. Give us that breaking news. This is political.
Yeah, it's happened in the last few moments. Andrew Bridgen has left the Reclaim Party. Now, you will remember he was a member of the Conservative Party until April 2023. Then he had the whip suspended in January after criticising the COVID-19 vaccines. He became then a member of the Reclaim Party, but he has released a statement in the past few moments saying that he's made the incredibly difficult decision to resign from the Reclaim Party. He says he'd like to thank all of the team who've been excellent and supported him. He came to this decision purely because of a difference in the direction of the party. He will still wholeheartedly support the policies and the values of the Reclaim Party and wishes them the best for the future.
So is he resigning his seat, or is he just resigning from the party?
Resigning from the Reclaim Party.
OK.
Yeah.
Right, that's the very latest. They were also this morning keeping an eye on the trial of two teenagers. This is the murder of Brianna Gray in a park in Warrington. The 16-year-old was stabbed 28 times, an absolutely horrible thing. The verdict comes in today. Let's go there live. Sophie Reaper for us.
Well, good morning to you both. Yesterday's proceedings here at Manchester Crown Court began with Richard Littler, KC, the defence barrister for Boy Y in this trial, giving his closing speeches. He told the court that if this case were a play, it would be a tragedy, and that Brianna Jai's death had been written, directed, produced by Girl X, and that it was their job to determine if Boy Y was simply a member of the cast or if he was just an extra who'd been manipulated by Girl X. Of course, both of the Girl X and Boy Y have their identities concealed for legal reasons. Throughout the course of this trial, they have both maintained their innocence, instead blaming the other for Brianna Jai's death. Now, after Richard Littler had finished his closing speech, we then heard from the judge presiding over this case, Justice Yip. She told the jury that it was important that they take into consideration all of the evidence that they've heard over the past 17 days, but it was not their duty to try and determine why Girl X or Boy Y may have potentially carried out the alleged murder of Brianna Jai. Once she had finished her summation of the evidence, she told the jury that it was simply too late in the afternoon for them to begin their deliberations, and that instead she would send them home for the day and bring them back first thing this morning to send them out, give them the final direction and send them out to begin their deliberations. So that is what we anticipate to happen here at Manchester Crown Court this morning.
Sophie, thank you very much indeed. Right, let's take a breather now with the time at 14 minutes past 9 o'clock. And the question we'd like to ask you is...
Would you like to win £10,000 cash, brand new tech, including a brand new iPhone, and shopping vouchers?
Yes, please, is the answer, Miss Ellie.
It would be nice.
Well, you could be the winner of our very first Great British giveaway. The result will be in January, and here's all the details on how to enter and maybe make those prizes yours.
It's the Great British Giveaway, your chance to grab some amazing prizes and start your new year the right way. You could win an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Imagine having all of that extra cash in your bank account. We'll also bring you bang up to date with the very latest iPhone 15 Pro Max. And we'll give you £500 worth of shopping vouchers to spend in the store of your choice. For another chance to win the iPhone, the vouchers and £10,000 cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB01, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 5th of January. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Good luck.
To owners and dogs which are facing being put down in January. We're going to go live to Manchester Dogs Home. These dogs need a home. That's the question. But would you give a home to an XL bully after this?
Hello, thank you for being a big part of GB News.
We'd like to wish you and your loved ones a Christmas season full of comfort and joy,
as well as a peaceful and prosperous new year.
From our family
to yours.
We are proud to be your channel.
Merry Christmas.
Happy Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Happy Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Merry Christmas.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
to find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Dilemma going on in dogs, homes, rescue centres around the country for owners of many stray or abandoned dogs, but owners of the controversial XL bully breed have 2 weeks to make sure their pets are muzzled in public, and more restrictions will follow in February.
But campaigners have criticised the government for what they say is a knee-jerk reaction. They claim the new regulations are causing many dogs to be abandoned this winter as people prepare for those incoming changes to the law.
Right, let's go to Colin Balance now. We'll introduce you to Colin. He is a home liaison officer. Colin, Manchester Dogs Home for you, but this could be happening in any dog sanctuary around the country. Are you seeing a rise in dogs being abandoned? I mean, we do say a lot of people buy dogs for Christmas and get dogs for Christmas, and we say a dog is for life, not just for Christmas. Do you notice a difference in your traffic in terms of coming and going?
Yeah, it's always a different Eamonn on the amount of dogs that come in over Christmas. It's like to, throw the old out to get the new in, which is quite sad.
Well, there is a situation where we're worried about these XL bully dogs, of course, as well. Do you think they will be unduly impacted?
They will be, Eamonn. People are going to abandon these dogs because obviously with the laws that are coming out now, people won't be able to afford the fees. It's a £92 registration fee for a start.
Yeah. Now, how difficult it is. You see, I have to be honest about this. I am a dog lover, right? I've no difficulty about that. And yet I had to be honest with myself this morning and say, would I actually adopt, would I rescue one of these dogs? And to be quite truthful, mate, I'd be a bit frightened.
Yeah, I mean, they can be intimidating. And don't get me wrong, there is some that can be dangerous. But, we have some here which need homes at the moment that you'd look at them and you'd think, they're like puppy dogs. I've got one with me now in the office.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely gorgeous.
Can we see it?
Of course you can.
Yeah.
Come here, Roxy.
Roxy.
Ah, Roxy.
Come on. Come on. Up you get. Come on.
Oh, right, yeah.
See, Roxy is very cute.
And
she likes a cuddle.
Oh, she loves it. But the sad thing is, she's only got till the 31st of December.
So, Colin, what is happening? So, Roxy is one of the XL bullies that you've got in Manchester Dogs Home, but you have a number of them at the moment, don't you? And when it comes to the 31st of December, if they're not adopted, are they going to be put down?
They have to be by law. And that's the sad thing about it. It's a tearjerker, really, because...
Well, I see you're jerking your tears there, Colin, and I don't blame you. I mean, the difference is that looks a sedate, loving animal that you've got there, not at all like the ones that, we report on here in the news and we worry about. Have you seen another side to Roxy?
Yeah, Roxy's come in here and she's been the opposite to what,
the press has been. Yeah. Look, we're running out of time. We're coming to the end of the programme. The main thing is by the 31st of December, there's Roxy. You've got her there. Never mind us on screen. Just get the dog. Just see the dog fully on the screen here. And the main thing is, what would you say to people in 15 seconds to adopt Roxy? What would you say?
Well, we need a home for Roxy. It's desperate before the 31st of December. We really do, because it's just so sad for them.
Could you be that person?
It really is sad for them.
Colin Balance, he's at Manchester Rescue Centre there, their Dogs Home. Thank you. We'll see you in the morning from 6.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good morning. It's Aidan McKibben here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. It's a bright start in the south. It's not going to last. We're going to see increasingly cloudy weather across the whole of the UK, and in many places it will be damp and breezy. We're starting with the damp conditions across northern parts of the country. Outbreaks of rain, persistent and heavy over western hills, and some flakes of snow at first over the Scottish mountains. But otherwise, this is mild air that's arriving from the Atlantic. So after an early chill in the south, it turns cloudier and it turns milder into the afternoon, although it's not going to feel particularly warm as the winds pick up. Temperatures widely in the double figures. And as we go into the evening, it's going to stay mild because of the cloud cover, because of the breeze. And actually that breeze is going to strengthen overnight. We're going to see gales arriving into the north and northwest of the UK. Spells of rain pushing southeastwards across the country, followed by blustery showers for Scotland. And it's certainly going to be a lively start to Thursday. A mild start, frost-free across the country, although not feeling mild, obviously, because of the increasingly strong wind. That wind could bring some disruptive conditions, especially over northern hills and northern coasts, with the risk of 70 or even higher mile-per-hour wind gusts for the upland parts of northern England and Scotland, as well as the coastal parts of northern Scotland. And there'll be frequent showers carried in on that wind, although in between some brighter spells. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train. Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. The Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show, every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 9:30 on Wednesday the 20th of December. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News with me, Andrew Pearce, and Pip Thompson.
Don't get ill this Christmas. The first of 3 days of junior doctors' strikes are underway in England this morning, and there are warnings that elderly people are at risk.
And another by-election bind for Rishi Sunak. The Conservative MP for Wellingborough, Peter Bone, has lost his seat after a recall petition. Another by-election the Tories will probably lose.
Inflation falls. The rate has dropped to 3.9%, lower than expected and the lowest rate in more than 2 years. The Chancellor says the government's plan is working.
A year ago, inflation was 11.1%. Now it's fallen to 3.9%, the lowest for over 2 years. And that shows the government's plan for the economy is working.
An invasion of privacy from next autumn. Brits will have to give fingerprints to holiday in Europe. It's all part of a post-Brexit border control.
Dogs on death row, the desperate race faced by shelters to find new homes for canines with suspected XL bully features before the government's ban comes into force.
And we're going to talk about that dog owner up in Manchester.
At Manchester Dogs Home, which have a number of what are suspected XL bully type breeds. They are desperately trying to find new homes for them because otherwise those dogs will be put down at the end of December. You might have a thought on that. You might even be interested in rehoming one. Do get in touch with us.
Like dogs?
I have 3 already, Andrew.
What's the
I just can't. I haven't got the space. gbviews@gbnews.com. Let us know where you are watching from, and don't forget to give us your name too. That's quite important. Let's go to your headlines now. Here's Tatiana.
Pip, thank you. 9:32. This is the latest from the GB Newsroom. Breaking news this hour. MP Andrew Bridgen has resigned from the Reclaim Party, citing a difference in direction. In a statement, the Member of Parliament for North West Leicestershire said he'll continue to support Reclaim's policies and values. Mr Bridgen said the likelihood of a general election next year was also a factor. A spokesman for the MP told GB News he'll be standing as an independent. The Chancellor says interest rates have fallen to 3.9% due to difficult decisions the government made a year ago. Newly released ONS figures show UK inflation fell from 4.6% in October. It's still well above the Bank of England's goal of 2%. The ONS says the decrease in fuel prices was the biggest reason for the fall. Food prices are also rising more slowly. Mr Hunt says more still needs to be done.
A year ago, inflation was 11.1%. Now it's fallen to 3.9%, the lowest for over 2 years. And that shows the government's plan for the economy is working. But there's still further to go. Inflation never falls in a straight line. And what we want to do for families up and down the country is to move away from this era of prices continually going up, because we know what pressure it's putting on family budgets.
Junior doctors have begun a 3-day walkout less than a week before Christmas. This strike will last until December 23rd as part of a major escalation in their dispute over pay. Hospital leaders have described the walkouts as their worst fears realised as the number of people needing help with winter viruses rises. The action will be followed by a 6-day strike at the start of January. That'll be the longest in NHS history.